Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to New York City Jewelry Week 2021, Day 4. I hope you've been joining us all week long, and I hope you will continue to join us. We're at the Jewelry Week Hump Day, which is Thursday for us because we're online and in the wild 7 days a week for you. Again, we've got an action-packed lineup today, both in person and virtually. We're going to kick off the day here virtually on the live stream, and then we hope to see you all in the wild around the city for an exciting lineup of programming. There's a great symposium happening at Museum of Art and Design and numerous events, too many to list, all around the city. So be sure to keep checking our website to keep up with what you're going to be doing today. And don't forget that you can still watch this live stream for 24 hours on our YouTube channel. The best way to access all of this amazing content ongoing is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you can get caught up on anything that you've missed throughout the week. But we also release content regularly throughout the year, so you can always find us there. There's still time to RSVP for the rest of the week. So again, that link is in the description for you. Check that out. There's also so much other amazing stuff to check out, not just the programs that we have going on right now. So be sure to head to our website and check out virtual booths. There's some really exciting artists, brands, institutions, and other services. Also, what it's all about. Don't forget to shop the week. You can check out the shop on our website. And we also have an amazing new project and partnership this year with Gesso. So be sure to download the Gesso app and check out New York City Jewelry Week's 2021 Retail Guide. Some really fantastic folks are featured on that. So if you haven't already, please engage with all of this amazing stuff. It's not just about live programs. So once again, just some housekeeping stuff before we kick off the day today. Many of our programs this morning and this afternoon will have Q&A. You can always post your questions in the chat. Just a reminder that you need to be watching us at the live scheduled time to have those questions answered. So if you're watching us on demand or you're joining us a bit later, we're unfortunately not going to be able to answer them. So come on down, join us live if you've got burning questions. And as always, please post love for our speakers and everything that's happening in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And just another everyday reminder that this is, of course, an anti-racist, inclusive, and safe space, and harassment of any kind at our events, online or otherwise, will not be tolerated. You can also view our New York City Jewelry Week Code of Conduct, which is linked in the description for you. Okay, that is all of that. So I'm just going to share my screen for a hot second, and we're going to do this. Like I said, 2021, we're day 4, halfway through. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors for this year who helped make Jewelry Week possible. Great list of folks there. You should research all of them. They're instrumental in making this week a possibility. Of course, also thank you to our official museum partner, Museum of Arts and Design, and our official education partner, Commence Jewelry, and all of our other wonderful partners who come together to support and collaborate with New York City Jewelry Week. So what do we have in store for you today? We have got up first at 10:30, British Jewelry Now, which I'm about to introduce to you. Then following directly after that, you're going to learn everything you need to know about diamonds with Diamonds 101. And then after that, we're going to hear a fantastic lineup. Art Jewelry Forum and the Jewelry Library present Jewelry Stories live. So we've got a great triple threat for you this morning here at Jewelry Week. So stay tuned. I am going to now line up our first program and hand over to our moderator. Let's do that now. Okay, so British Jewelry Now. This is a program that's in partnership with Goldsmiths Fair, and you're going to hear from New York City Jewelry Week's co-founder, Bella Neyman, who is speaking to a fantastic group of rising stars in British jewelry. The panel will focus on the changing face of British jewelry, highlighting the work of 5 amazing designers we've got for you today. It is my great pleasure to welcome Bella Neyman.
Thank you so much. Hi, Alex. Hi. Good morning or good afternoon to those tuning in from Europe or other parts of the world. It's really exciting to be here. This is actually my first virtual program of New York City Jewelry Week. I've been out and about just feeling the energy and excitement of this week, and to be here with you in the virtual realm is really cool. And it's nice to see you, Alex, on screen. So thank you all for being here. This talk, as Alex mentioned, is in partnership with Goldsmiths Fair, speaking about the future of British jewelry. I had the pleasure of virtually visiting the fair in September and seeing some of the incredible work that was on view. In the past, when we spoke of British jewelry, names such as Sal Ved, Gerda Flockinger, Wendy Ramsharp, Peter Chang, and Andrew Grima, whose daughter Francesca was actually here yesterday speaking about her father's contribution to 20th century jewelry, those were the names that we always thought about. But today, I want you to think about and meet the new generation of British jewelers, those who are changing the face of British jewelry today and whose work is already and will be continuously included in major exhibitions, publications, and conversations going forward. So I'd like to welcome you today and introduce you to an incredible group. Leonid Dementiev, Melanie Eddy, Lucie Gledhill, Jenny House of Origin31, and Caiyang Yin. Where are you guys? There you are.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Good to see you all. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
it's good to be here.
It's incredibly exciting. I love that some of you are in your studios, so you're giving us a peek into where the magic happens. Thank you so much. You know, as I mentioned, when I was going through the exhibition virtually, through Goldsmiths Fair virtually, I was blown away by all of the talent that I was seeing and by your work. Some of you I've had the pleasure of meeting in person, of course, and holding your pieces, and others I've been admiring online for the last couple of years. And so I wanted to take this opportunity today to introduce your work to our audience. And so we'll just start kind of in alphabetical order. I'm not going to read your bios. I actually would love to have you all speak about your work a little bit before we jump into this conversation. Because that's really what this is going to be. It'll just be like a lovely conversation between us. But before we do that, let's start with Leonid Dementiev and your work. If we can show our first slide, thank you. So what I'd love to do is have you all just introduce your work a little bit and talk about what the last couple of years have been like for you and sort of just how you got your start.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Leonid. Like Bella said, I started my jewelry journey from John Cass, where I did foundation course, and then I continued in Saint Marylebone, where I did jewelry design bachelor's degree. So in my life, I was always fascinated with material, and that's always been my process. How I start every design process. I always start with material investigation, research. I'm really driven by its qualities and properties. So lately, in the last few years, I've been driven by working with wire. As you can see here, most of my work involves wire. I start with melting gold, roll mill on it, and working with it by hand. I actually do not cast or print my pieces. They're all done by hand, and that's what gives it a really light, but really flexible and strong qualities. The very first piece in this range was the Water ring on the left, which is very delicate, dainty ring with a little diamond set in there. It was a really challenge to me because I didn't know much about craft back then. It was one of my very first designs, but I was really dedicating myself to trying to make this piece in real life. It was really small, but I achieved it. It was really fun piece. The bracelet in the middle, it's Eternity Wave, and it was the most challenging piece I've ever made, but it was all worth it. I was actually awarded a bronze award for wire work, and that made it possible for me to become a freeman of the Wire Drawers livery company. So I'm really honored. It happened last month, and I'm really happy. So all of the work in here is with wire. I think it's a very interesting material to work with. There is endless possibilities, and I wanted to push it a little bit forward, a little bit further with my cloud rain that you can see on the right. So it's all actually about the pearls, because the longer I work with jewelry, the more I realize that I just have this drive and love for pearls, mostly for Baroque shapes and Baroque colors. They're just absolutely wonderful. There is so much life in them. There is so much character in each and single one of them. Absolutely love it. So I actually have new pieces and new collections developing at the moment, and I hope to present them early next year. So it's very exciting with my new website, which is going to go live hopefully really soon. So please do follow my work on Instagram. And yes, I think that there is a lot of endless possibilities, and I look forward to showing you more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love how you can see this continuity of the wire work throughout your pieces. Wonderful. So our next presenter will be Melanie Eddy. Hi, Melanie.
Hello. Hi. So I'll introduce myself. So I'm a jeweler from Bermuda and of British and New Zealand, actually, citizenship, and have been in the UK now for 16, 17 years, quite a while. And I'm kind of beaming in today from my studio in the Goldsmiths Center here in Clerkenwell. And I guess you could describe my work as kind of, well, I'm known for my kind of sculptural jewelry, which has a geometric focus. My approach is kind of like a bit abstract, modernist approach. So a lot of my references and inspirations come out in my work in a kind of an abstract way. I guess you could say that it kind of started with the forms first. So I worked with the forms first, and I layer geometric constructions in a way that allows me to either carve forms or work directly in sheet and fabricate like kind of intricate faceted forms. And as kind of my practice has grown, basically I've started to incorporate gems initially in a more kind of traditional way. And as I'm pushing my kind of work forward further, it's becoming kind of more and more asymmetric and a different approach to setting. I'm trying to think what else I should indicate about myself. I think in a way, it's almost like, for me, it's like the balance between like the design and thinking about the pieces and how they are formed like on the body and how they're worn and interacted with by both the wearer, but also who's looking at it, but also like a reverence for the processes and the materials. So it's kind of like a combination of the two. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I kind of came to the UK to kind of push my practice, and I thought it was going to be here for 2 months, and that was back in 2004, and I'm still here. So it's been really transformative time actually coming here and coming from a place where jewelry was like my kind of ideas and understanding of the jewelry's like kind of space and scope was quite limited, and coming to the UK and kind of experiencing the breadth of what was possible really kind of opened up my practice. So that's me as an intro.
Incredible. Thank you. And I love the sculptural quality of your pieces. You know, I love how you could see that thread throughout. I mean, just these 3 pieces here, from something sort of very early on to the most recent piece, you know.
Yeah, so those bangles were in my kind of degree kind of showing back in 2007, I think. Yeah, so it's like a while ago now. So yeah, and then it's kind of, as you can see, it's kind of informed and like grown since then.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so next we have Lucie Gledhill. Hi, Lucie.
Hi. Thanks for inviting me to speak. So I'm a Londoner born and raised. My workshop is in North London. I've had a fairly traditional route through jewellery. So I did a degree at Middlesex University, and then I did a residency at Bishopsland, which focused on traditional metalwork techniques. And then I did my master's at the Royal College, and I graduated in 2009, so about 12 years ago. I refer to myself as a chain maker, and I make jewellery collections as well as sculptural objects. I also teach a lot, so I teach at Central St Martin's and the Royal College of Art, and I also teach from my workshops. So yeah, the teaching has always been sort of balanced with my own making practice. So recent projects have been, in 2019, I was awarded the Jerwood Makers Open, and that allowed me to take my sculptural practice to a new ambitious scale. And then more recently, I was awarded the Career Catalyst Grant from the Goldsmiths Company, which has allowed me to work to sort of study remotely from Master Goldsmith Giovanni Corvaia. So I've been learning a specific wire drawing technique, and I've been doing it all virtually via WhatsApp and Zoom. Yeah, and the fruits of that research, hopefully I can push into my jewellery collections to make new designs. So what we're looking at here is some of my gold jewellery. There's the rope chain, so each wire is actually a soldered link. So the piece has the quality of movement like a textile rope, but it's actually a chain. And the double graduated chain ring has been very popular as well. Yeah, so that's a bit about me.
Thank you. So I just have to say, as much as I love looking at the images of everyone's jewelry, you really have to sort of see it in person, and that's where Goldsmiths comes in. So because I can only imagine, you know, from trying on, you know, Melanie's ring and sort of seeing the geometry on my hand to holding these pieces in person and sort of feeling the links in between my fingers. Like, there are some things, you know, that has to be said about experiencing jewelry in person, and also the scale. So with Lucie's work, the first time I had seen it, I actually just mentioned it to her before we went live, was this kind of like this rope chain. How long was that piece, Lucie? I mean, it's completely like covers the entire body.
It's it's at least 2 meters long. It was 4 meters long, continuous rope chain. It was about 2 kilos of sterling silver.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was one of my sculptural pieces called Rope is Patient.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much. So the next designer is Jenny House of Origin31. Hi, Jenny.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So tell us about these pieces, and about yourself.
Well, yeah, a little bit about myself. I'll tell you where I started from. I had a little bit of the cliche start, always did craft work and arts as a kid. And then at the age of 16, all UK children have to do work experience, and I did mine in a working jeweller's. And then from there, I had a Saturday job, and I got to make my first ring at the working jeweller's. And I loved it. And I said to my boss at the time, how do I get into this? He said, do a degree. Did a degree. And then afterwards, he trained me up as a goldsmith. Bright lights of London were calling, so I moved up to London. And since then, I've been working for London design houses, specialising in production and development, making their pieces. Mm-hmm. But now it's time for me and new challenges. So I created Origin31. So I'm the lady who makes the pieces. And I like to keep my pieces fun and light-hearted because life can get a bit too serious. Mm-hmm. So that often means I draw inspiration from my childhood, a time when, you know, no stresses, you're carefree. So that's either with the design concepts or with playful colour. I also like being interactive, so I do bespoke pieces. So the first image that you see there is a before and after, turning a inherited piece that's very sentimental, but something to the lady's taste. So melted down the gold and reformed the stones within the piece. Mm-hmm. And then you see the fidget ring. I'm wearing that today. So all the pieces move around. So very playful, very interactive with that pop of colour. And my very popular rock pool ring with, again, a splash of colour that's really intense. It's electric blue. So again, keeping things very exciting and vibrant.
Incredible. Thank you so much. What I love about this group of jewelers here is that the range in the work, right? So you really get to see such a wide spectrum of pieces. And again, like, I wish I was able to sort of fidget with that ring and sort of see how all of those, stones sort of move around. I remember as a kid having that, game in my hand. So I can only imagine how much fun it would be to wear, the ring. And that's the thing with jewelry, is that it brings so much joy, right? And it also allows us to express our emotions. And so with that, this is sort of a perfect intro for Caiyang Yin, whose jewelry does just that, is express emotion. Hi, Caiyang.
Bella, thanks for having me here. And I'll just start with a short introduction of myself. So my name is Caiyang. The family name is Yin. My name is actually a simple combination of my parents' family names and the first character of my hometown. So, and I graduated from China University of Geosciences 6 years ago. I finished my BA there. Then I started my MFA period in Edinburgh College of Arts. Then after finishing the MFA courses, I moved to Birmingham. I started to work as an artist in residence at Birmingham School of Jewelry here. So basically, I don't have my own studio or workplace now because I'm an artist in residence here. So in return for the workspace and one of the best studios in the country, I'm actually partly in charge of the teaching job here. It's like assisting the students to finish their projects. And about my work here, as you can see, it's most of them, like they have a face on it. These are my better known pieces, but actually I used to do some kinetic jewelry, like interactive playful pieces, just like Jenny's. I mean, the playfulness is similar, but presented in a different way. But the faces are actually done with chasing. It's like 100% pure handmade pieces. And they got me some prizes here in the UK. And as you can see here, the piece on the right is actually a tiara that is going to Nelson and Atkins Museum of Art in I think it's in Kansas. So yeah, that basically is what I did and my story so far. And I think that's it for my part of the introduction. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh my God, I wish I can sort of try on that tiara. I guess I'll have to make my way to Kansas to see it. Incredible. Thank you all so much. So, now that I guess we'll sort of dive into the conversation portion of our program, since you've all, introduced yourself, and the reason I wanted you to do that is, one, so our audience gets to know you, but also gets to hear about some of the many hats that you all wear as well, which I think is really important for, independent jewelers, right? It's so much about the hustle and making everything sort of work together. And I wanted to ask you all, and sort of, I guess in no particular order, but, you told us how you entered the jewelry industry, but clearly, now you've had a lot of great success. You've all mentioned, some of the prizes that you've all won. But I wanted to start out kind of talking about some of the challenges that you faced in the beginning of your career, because I think it's very important, both for jewelers who are, or individuals who are interested in entering the jewelry industry. I think it's really important for them to sort of hear what are some of the challenges, and then also what are the successes, right? Because I think it's important for people to know that, it could be hard, but then it's also incredibly rewarding. So if you can all, and again, in no particular order, if you want to just sort of share what were some of the early challenges that you faced in the beginning. I don't know. Anybody you can, I don't know, kind of like raise your hand, Diamond. I don't know. Go ahead, Leonid.
So for me, the challenge was the very classic one. I spoke almost no English at all when I started my education here. So the challenge was the communication, obviously, but people were quite helpful and understanding that it's not because I was lazy, but because I just didn't have the education to be on the same level as them in English. So it was fine, because when I actually started making jewelry on the course, it didn't matter what language I spoke, because it was all about the work and craftsmanship and understanding of material and being hardworking. And that was the most important communication to people who I studied with, and tutors. They kind of were really, really helpful in that regard. So I think that was a tough one for a couple of years, but you catch on really quickly when you're in an environment where nobody speaks your language, and then all of a sudden you're like, actually, I understand everyone. And since then it was like smooth sailing for me, to be honest. That was really tough 2 years.
The language of jewelry wins, though.
Yes, that was really helpful. It was helpful that I had to work to make stuff with hands, so I didn't have to actually talk for the most of the time, but then I listened to people a lot. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Well, I've got something I'd say, like early on and continually, a kind of something that I struggle with is about space, really, especially in London, because my workshop I'm independent, but I also run quite a big workshop, and part of that is my teaching space where I run courses. So trying to keep that going, trying to find affordable space where I can do that kind of noisy, dirty workshop space, trying to find locations is challenging. And also like retail exhibiting space. So yeah, on both levels, I'd say that's one of the challenges of London, and probably New York is similar.
New York, yeah. Well, it's very interesting. I mean, when we were prepping for this conversation, and then some of the other research that I did, there are a lot of similarities between London and New York in the way the jewelry industry is set up here, in some of the challenges that we face here, space being certainly one of those. So yeah, and I think a lot of jewelers, we have such an international audience joining us today, and I'm sure they probably will say that, it's definitely, especially for independent jewelers starting out, if you don't have a large sort of budget, it's challenging to find a place to work, because, even just to get all of the tools, right? I mean,
that's the bit I was going to add in about. Yeah, I was going to say, like what Lucie said, the space, then oftentimes you're putting together work or collections speculatively. So you've got to do it ahead of time to then get it into a retail space or a gallery. So you've got to have the upfront capital for that. The tools take a long time to accumulate. I was quite lucky in the sense that I had the other things to work out, like a new place, new lay of the land, like didn't know any suppliers or any connections or anything. So it took time to build that all up. But one thing I had in my kind of favor to some extent was I had worked in the industry, like commercially. So I'd worked for a company, like in the, as we would say here, like in the trade. And I'd worked for two different companies. The first is kind of where I got my start when I was quite young. So a smaller company in Bermuda called Gem Seller, through a jeweler called Chet Trot, and then later to a bigger jewelry company in Bermuda that had like 12 stores. It was quite a big jewelry company. And I had the option when I started there for the company to buy the tools for me as a new jeweler, or for me to buy my tools. So basically, if they bought the tools, and I had the period of, like, I was there for 2 years full time, so I had a period of time to pay off the tools so that I could have the tools. So in a sense, I was lucky, because when I left that company, I had all my tools that I had like kind of paid for over a period of time from when I was working in the trade. So in a sense, like that would have taken that takes, and I'm sure a lot of you on the panel will say, that's the thing that takes a long time, is like adding to it, getting the materials, like kind of putting that together to put together a small collection. And so I think you've got that in addition to what can be exorbitant like costs of getting a space that you need. So I started out just on a bench, like in a shared space with like 6 other jewelers, and then moved later on to the center. So it'll be almost 10 years. So in February, it'll be 10 years since I moved into a space with initially 2 other jewelers. And now there's 1 other jeweler that shares a space with me. But yeah, it takes time. It really takes time to kind of like build that and kind of be able to expand as your business expands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else saying?
Oh, it's actually a similar problem as Leonid. It's the language, but I started from a position like I thought I can speak English and I thought I am good at it, but actually it's a different situation because I'm a young man with attitude. By that I mean I just have some anger issues sometimes. So in that situation, actually, when I had trouble with some people in charge of my casting and the service providers, things like that, when we had some problems, I tried my best to hold the anger back because I don't want to look angry and speechless at the same time. It's just really stupid. So the challenge is actually originated in language, but actually it turned out to be how to control myself, how to communicate like in a calm way. So in the process, I gradually understand that it is really important to manage my emotions and including anger. So that's really important to me. So the whole process of silversmithing and making jewelry is actually a training of my mind. So that's why I'm still doing this. I treat it as a part of me training myself as a human being in this world. So I'm still grateful to this, and it's a challenge, and there are many challenges around me, but I like challenges. Like I said before, I always did this. I like challenges because that makes my fun. So yeah, it's basically that biggest challenge that I'm still dealing with it now. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it could be really challenging, especially when you're trying to express yourself, and if people don't understand it, it's quite frustrating. So actually English wasn't my first language either. It was Russian, and so I understand what that's like as well. Jenny, what about you?
Yeah, I'll throw something else up. So when I kind of started out in the trade, after getting experience as a goldsmith, moving to London, working with different craftspeople at the start, people kind of saw me as a paper pusher. They didn't really think that, or weren't aware of, again, I know how to work with metal, I know how designs are made, because working or specialising in production and development, that's what I did. I turned the designs into reality. So as time went on and they could see that I solved the problems, I got things made within the deadlines, I kind of earned their respect. So yeah, it was kind of being a woman in the trade, there aren't so many people that kind of know how to make jewelry, know how to kind of turn it into reality. So yeah, being a woman.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. So sort of just so people in the, if you're here in New York or if you're in London, so we have these 2 very sort of similar districts. So here in New York, we have, 47th Street or the Diamond District. And in London, you have the equivalent of, it's called Hatton Garden, correct? And so I, from what I understand, is that a lot of, the polishers, the setters, the craftsmen that you might all employ or use, I should say, are located in Hatton Garden, which is also kind of a very traditional, if you will, place. And so some of the challenges that I've heard from jewelers here is that, you know, the district is not always so welcoming to new designers, to women, to people of color. You know, there's this attitude of, oh, we know better. And I think that's something we've kind of talked about as well on our conversation.
Within the thing you have to bear in mind with London and kind of UK, the trade, the first hallmark was actually it began in the 1300s. So our trade is, you know, phenomenally old. And it's very slow to evolve because, again, the British have a kind of a sense, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So it takes time for, you know, the cogs to churn. So the trade is has a very old way of thinking. Things are changing, and I have to say, my hat off to Goldsmiths Fair. They are one of the kind of instrumental kind of companies that are, you know, promoting change, promoting skills. So yeah, slowly the trade as a whole is changing, but it takes time.
Absolutely. Does anybody else want to?
Well, that space is also, I mean, I started my first workshop outside of like working in a college environment. And I think I borrowed a workshop for maybe a few weeks before I had my own space in a workshop, was in Hatton Garden. So I was there for 4 years before I came here to the center. And even just in the last like 10 years, it's changed. So, I mean, in some ways it's changed because in a difficult way, because like some of the spaces that were workshop spaces are now advertising, you know, companies and like architects and things like that. But also in a way, more and more independent like designer makers started like taking up spaces in Hatton Garden. It wasn't just necessarily like kind of specifically trade orientated or for those doing like setting and polishing and all the different areas. So in a way, it's shifted. And I think it's good because I think as like some of the other things have contracted, like new, fresh, like blood and independent kind of jewelers have kind of come into those spaces. So yeah, I think it's an interesting kind of space, but it can be tricky. And I think like there's younger people now working within like those kind of support and services and the things we subcontract out elements of it. So some of them have now gone into that. So it's like there is in a sense a change of the guard. But yeah, initially like Jenny, I had worked where I'd worked in Bermuda. I'd done a lot of the processes. I'd done casting. I knew about those processes, and I had some experiences where people kind of would say something to me thinking I didn't know like any better. And I was like, I've actually done this process. I know I'm paying you to do it, but I've actually done it myself. So I kind of know what I'm talking about here. So I think, but sometimes you just kind of have to smile and grit your teeth and kind of push through those things. But it is changing, I think.
Yeah. Anyone else? So I read recently a really great article about Hatton Garden called London's Jewelry Garden, which was published in the New York Times on February 10th, 2020. It was written by Rachel Garahan, the jewelry and watch director of British Vogue. And I highly recommend that article for anyone, you know, not for you guys, because but anyone else joining this program. It's just a really great article that gives you a sense for what Hatton Garden is like. And again, so it's Rachel Garahan wrote it, and it's called London's Jewelry Garden, and it was in the New York Times. How would you all describe the British jewelry community today?
Well, I think there's a couple of different sections of like, there's centers of jewelry within the UK. It's not all London based. So you've got different kind of, I mean, maybe you can speak to that.
Because I'm just at the very beginning of my career. So I'm still in that, educational environment. I'm working with the teaching members and the students every day. But based on my own experiences, it's because it's in the university. So everybody's actually open-minded, and people are actually really willing to help you to solve your problems, to give you some guidances, no matter it's about making stuff or just sorting out with your business. Even for me, like, I'm not a student here. I'm actually never a student at this university, but as a member of the community, and I feel welcomed here, and people are really trying to help me when I need a hand from them. So it's really, you know, heartwarming for me, and it's in Birmingham. So as it comes to in my experiences in London, so it's always about the Goldsmiths Fair, and it's amazing because basically I am one of the youngest guys there, and people are actually really welcoming, and I visited like so many experienced like contemporary jewelry practitioners or silversmiths. I visit their stands and try to talk to them and try to learn from them, and they're really like amazingly opening. They're really willing to share their experiences and knowledge, even if you want to ask some questions about how they realize the design to like in a 3D like real piece. They're always willing to tell you how they did that. I think it just reflects how confident they are really in themselves and in their craftsmanship. And it's also amazing that the community actually, to me, it was like the community was formed and built like super quick and maybe overnight. And still I had like frequent communication with people I met there. And that's really like not for me, because as I thought, because the place, the venue, the Goldsmiths Hall, and the set of the Goldsmiths Fair is really like, you know, have that sense of solemn, and you can almost feel the history in the air. But actually, it turns out to be energetic and active, and you know, the atmosphere of sharing and the stories behind their pieces, and how they develop their business. I think it's a really a good place for young people like me to absorb what we can see and hear. So I think the community is really healthy here. It's different from my expectations. I thought it would be like I need to be really humble in that, but actually I can speak and I can share my own opinions too. So that's amazing to me, like, so far. But like I said, I'm always ready and willing to take on some new challenges. So yeah, I like it here.
Yeah, thank you. I've heard that when you enter Goldsmiths, the building there, it's incredibly impressive. And there's a staircase that kind of just like, it seems like it goes on, and it's just one of the most beautiful places to exhibit your work. So I hope to experience it one day, but anyone else?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it with, you know, my reference before is, you know, I'm part of, you know, a really old trade, and I'm really proud to be part of it. But, you know, I am one for change. I look forward rather than looking back. You know, at the moment, again, people are addressing ethical standpoints. You know, that's the latest thing to kind of hit the jewelry trade as a whole, whether you're designer, maker, supplier, whatever. So it's interesting to see at the moment where that takes people. You know, there is a lot of greenwashing out there. I like the term, or for me, I am ethically minded. I don't ever say I'm 100% ethical. I don't believe that it exists. Technologies are always constantly changing. So no one can ever be, you know, 100% ethical. Mm-hmm. Hence, I like to push forward in my business in ways of being as responsible as I can. So yeah, that's my kind of what I'm keeping an eye out at the moment, of how other people are addressing that, which is very interesting to me.
Absolutely, it is very interesting.
I just wanted to second the thing about community, because I think, like, you know, it is really like community orientated, and jewelry, and I think not just like in London, but also like throughout like the UK, and like people that I met maybe, you know, showing at a fair like over 10 years ago, I'm still in contact with, and if I see them at other things, we'll catch up. Or, you know, there's a few different jewelers that Jenny and I have caught up on a chat over tea, and like, you know, there's a few of us that will get together every once in a while and kind of like just talk about what we're working on and help, like, in a way, push ourselves and our practices forward. And it is kind of quite community minded like that, and it could be quite competitive, really, when you think about it. But my experience is that it isn't generally, and you know, that's the nice thing about it. And you know, I've worked in other aspects, you know, of the sector or of the trade, you know, in teaching or in sector development or other spaces where it can get a bit like, you know, can get a bit competitive, and there can be like kind of certain kinds of politics going on. But in general, when it comes to like this part of the kind of jewelry sector, when it comes to like independent jewelers, I feel like there's a real camaraderie, which is nice. That's my experience anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, Leonid, were you going to say something?
Sure. So I'm really young in the trade as well, and I didn't expect to become a freeman so early on in my career. But joining the livery of wire drawers was really amazing, because it's a very small livery, but it's like a little family basically. It's people from the trade, from outside of the trade, who are actually admirers of our work, and it's really a great sense of this fellowship where people actually support each other. Even though there's a lot of jewelers, and we do sell to a lot of same clients sometimes, but there's never this feeling that I want to outsell someone, or I don't want to tell you a secret about my setter or a secret about my platers. I very rarely see that in the trade, I have to say. And yeah, it's really nice that there is these little groups around the trade that you can join and be a part of, that is really supportive in your endeavors, either making or trying to set up a business or set up a collective. It's quite welcoming, I have to say.
So for those of us who are not familiar with the term like livery or what that means, is it like a guild? Can you sort of say something for us Americans who don't know what that is?
Very old companies that originated in like 1300s, 1500s. You know, they're really, really old, and their origins are always different. Goldsmiths Company is one of the very oldest ones. There is a livery of butchers, of fishmongers, of cloth workers, wire drawers. It's really, it's all originated in trades. But now all these companies' purposes have changed over the centuries. So now they're mostly dedicating themselves to charity work. So either supporting the trades that they originated from, or supporting different charities that they just find to be important for the members of that livery. So, for example, the wire workers, they do a lot of charity, supporting the goldsmiths and people who work with thread and with technologies that are revolving around gold material. So it's very interesting British cultural part. Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that to us. So we've already sort of spoken a little bit about, you know, Goldsmiths Fair and, you know, retail opportunities. And I was wondering if you can all sort of talk a little bit more about what are some of the retail opportunities available. Maybe we'll start with you, Lucie.
Sure, yeah. Well, in London, or do you mean specifically London? Sorry.
Yeah, London, and then Caiyang, if you want to sort of talk about it as it applies to, you know, Birmingham, or however, wherever your retail opportunities are coming from, really.
So during lockdown and the pandemic, I kind of turned towards more online retail, trying to push sales through Instagram and my website, for example. But then there are a few stockists in London. I definitely lost a few during the pandemic, unfortunately. But there are some that have continued. And for me, the challenge has always been like trying to find places to show and sell my sculptural work as well as my jewellery work. But I definitely would list Jill Wing Gallery as one of my top sort of jewellery outlets. And then I've shown some of my sculptural work with like Sarah Myerscough Gallery and White Conduit Projects as well. So yeah, although London is like a kind of vibrant place to buy jewellery, it can be challenging sometimes to find the right outlet when you're doing wholesale. So yeah, a mixture really for me of like online and in person.
Yeah. And anyone else? Caiyang, do you want to?
I'd agree with that. It's because it's really frustrating for me to just started the business and then COVID happened. It was like, and I didn't really have a high expectation. I'm even not sure about if I can just make it through the pandemic. But actually, the internet helped a lot, and I have been trying to build up a virtual platform for me, including the website and my Instagram account, and I'm still in connection with previous customers or the visitors from my previous exhibitions, and it turns out really positive for me because of their help or their interest in my work. And I started to have some overseas customers now, which is surprising for me, and I believe it's the work of me for the virtual parts of showcase of displaying my pieces to different people through internet. I believe it's working for me now. So I think I'm gonna continue to do this, and also I'm trying to take part in more offline activities and events, because it's always as important to stay active in local or more localized events. That's really important for me. And yeah,
absolutely.
Anyone?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I was going to say is that I think in a way, the landscape's changed to some extent in the last decade, and we've actually lost quite a lot of regular retail spaces for jewelry. And what's been happening more recently is more kind of pop-up events or shorter events. Obviously you have the regular annual events like Goldsmiths Fair, and there's some other smaller ones that are coming up that maybe aren't the length of that event. But what I'm going to kind of do something a little different and say what I would like to do is see more of that. So what I would like to do is see kind of some more innovative opportunities for retail here for jewelry. It would be nice to see more of these kinds of events, to have maybe some there are some things happening like collectives. I know, Leonid, you're showing in a show today, aren't you? With a collective
downstairs actually.
So I mean, I think that's really great. That type of thing is really great. These kind of groups coming together and putting them on. And I think if we have more of those kinds of things, it will help kind of stimulate people to kind of come out and try and look at things in person. As you said, Bella, it's great to see things online, and you can now look at videos and you can get an idea, but trying a piece of jewelry on is a special experience. And I think we need to make sure we kind of safeguard that experience too.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Leonid, tell us about where you're showing right now. Thanks for the plug, Melanie.
We're showing in the Goldsmiths Center where our workshops are. So it's for just a few people gathered together, and we have different styles of techniques and materials and aesthetics, but we all join together to show our work to our clients. So the center is really helpful with that. They are providing the space, and they're helping us with organizing the show. because not a lot of us have the experience of actually organizing our own show, which is, I mean, it's a skill on its own. So it's really nice that there is these opportunities like the Goldsmiths Center, the Goldsmiths Company, who are helping us with either providing space or their experience or knowledge or clients. And it's really nice. So we're doing the show for 2 days. Last day was the opening and today is the closing. So it's really nice opportunity to bring people to the show, because some people want it to be more of an event rather than just coming to the workshop, to the studio. They want to have like a drink and walk around and see different kinds of works together in this beautiful space. So it's a lovely event. I'm really enjoying it. My last offline show for the year, so I'm very excited.
And Jenny, what about you?
Yeah, I was just going to lead on from what Melanie said about kind of collectives and things like that. You know, I'm also a believer that you can kind of create your own opportunities. So again, I've got a couple of ideas for next year about such ideas. But again, I can't say too much. But if you're interested, sign up to my newsletter. But also there's other opportunities. You know, for example, when being at Goldsmiths Fair, I was a newbie this year, and they situated me amongst other designers that have been there for many years. And it was great just to chat to them about absolutely anything and everything. But that includes, you know, what other shows have you done? And just getting feedback from them and tips has been absolutely invaluable from that perspective as well.
One thing I forgot to say was the blended thing. So where they have shows are in person, but they also have a virtual presence, like you guys are doing with New York Jewelry Week. That's also really great as well. So it helps like support, like, so you get the people who can come, but also the people who can't come still get to engage with what's happening and see the new work. I think that's really good. I have actually also have a show opening this evening called Force of Nature, which is going to be running until the 27th. But you also can view all the pieces online as well and speak to the gallerists. That's at Elisabetta Cipriani Gallery, which is just off of Regent Street. So, I mean, that's really exciting. I think that's the first time I've been in a show that has like both, like in that way, not in like have the gallery also has an online shop, but in a specific, like almost like a online exhibition running at the same time as the in real life exhibition. And I think that's also an interesting new development as well for kind of getting the word out there about what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that we're sort of running out of time here, and we will be doing a conversation with Melanie Grant, who's the curator of that exhibition, Forces of Nature, on Saturday at 10:30 a.m. on our Instagram. I actually will be in conversation with Melanie from the gallery, and we'll look at some of the jewelry. So I hope you all will join us. Thank you all so much. You know, as we sort of wrap up this conversation, I do want to make sure that all of our listeners today do go and seek your work out. You all have such great Instagram presence, and you all have great websites. We will post your information, your tags on Instagram on our website. They're part of this event description. So please, please, please go and visit these jewelers. This is definitely not the last time you're going to be seeing them or hearing from them. I really can't wait to see what happens next year and the year after. I can't wait to visit you all in person in the UK. Thank you all so much for being here. Hats off to you all. I wish I can give you all like hugs, because this has been so nice getting to know all of you. And thank you all for everyone who joined us on this program today. I know that we have another one coming up in just a few minutes. So thank you all. It was a pleasure seeing you. And Alex, how are we doing?
Doing great, right on time. I love it.
I tried.
What a fantastic conversation. Thank you all so much for the wonderful insight into our kind of, sister community. There's lots of similarities between, obviously London and New York, but, it's always more exciting to hear it directly from the creators and the craftspeople who are working in these spaces. So thank you, Bella, for bringing together this amazing panel of people. Thank you all for sharing your work and experiences. And we hope to continue this kind of ongoing dialogue between New York and the London space. So thank you all for being our first program, also for day 4. It's very exciting.
And thank you to Goldsmiths Fair.
Yes, for partnering with us on this program and supporting so many great artists and creators. All right, well, that is going to be that. We are going to move on to our next program right away, because as you know, I like to keep a tight schedule over here at Jewelry Week. Even Bella's bending to my plans. So I'm going to introduce our next program, which is Diamonds 101. What exactly are the 4 C's and why are they important when purchasing a piece of diamond jewelry? So you're going to hear from second generation jeweler and graduate gemologist Zarig Baghdadlian, who's going to reveal what she looks for when purchasing diamonds for her clients, as well as for her namesake fine jewelry brand. And hint, big isn't always better. I'm just going to introduce Zarig and her interviewer Raisa Bruna. So Zarig grew up and saw some of the rarest colored and colorless diamonds in the world. She has always had an eye for picking the best quality diamonds for her clients. She earned her BA in fashion merchandising from LIM College and went on to earn her graduate gemologist certificate from GIA, after which she earned her master's in art, law, and business from Christie's London. She started her namesake jewelry brand using high-quality diamonds and gemstones expertly sourced from around the world, and each Zarig design is meant to instill a bold sense of confidence every time it is worn. And her co-panelist today is Raisa Bruna, who is a staff writer for Time magazine, specializing in pop culture and business, and they are also very close friends. So expect an exciting conversation from these two fantastic women. Raisa graduated from Yale University and interned at Business Insider when she landed her dream job at Time magazine. She's currently living in Sun Valley, Idaho, enjoying a bit of a change of pace before returning to New York City. Welcome to New York City Jewelry Week, Zarig and Raisa.
Hey, it's so great to be here. Thank you so much, Alex.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I was going to say thanks for having us. We're having you, but you
absolutely.
All right, I'm going to hand over to you guys, and I'm going to step away. Take it away.
Beautiful. Oh, Z, it looks like you're muted. So there we go. So good morning, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here for NYC Jewelry Week. And as Alex mentioned, I'm Raisa. I am out in Idaho. I am a writer at Time, and I'm also a longtime friend of Zarig. So it's really a privilege and a personal pleasure to get to spend this time with her, chatting and learning. So over the years, Zarig has taught me so much about diamonds. She lives and breathes them. And I'm excited for her to get to share her wisdom with everyone else who's watching today. So Z, with that, maybe you want to share a little bit more about yourself beyond what Alex mentioned.
Thank you so much for the intro, Alex. So I did this little intro slide over here for both of us, and I'm a second generation jeweler. I've been surrounded by fine jewelry and high-end diamonds my whole life. And I love, born in New Jersey, always came into New York City with my dad going to work. So it's a very old school industry. And I'm right now currently in New York City in Midtown Manhattan. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with my dear friend Raisa, who we're all about diamonds, because when I first started off my jewelry brand, a lot of my friends were like, Z, like, I don't really know what this like quality is all about. Like, what does it mean? Because I would list the quality of diamonds in my jewelry and they just really didn't understand. So I was like, I would love to do some sort of a talk that's just like all about education and about the importance of knowing what you're going to buy when you buy jewelry.
Yeah. And I think it's worth mentioning that, our friend group has been starting to look into purchasing diamonds, and Zarig has been an invaluable resource for everyone when they're beginning their journey in understanding how to invest and how to be an informed consumer. And yeah, that slide is about me, but this is the Zarig show, so we can move right on.
So basically, like, what we have to start off is like, what makes a diamond? And a diamond is basically carbon, and it's what makes a diamond is that, first of all, there has to be high pressure, high temperature, and tens of millions of years, and obviously the availability of carbon to create a diamond. So when you're wearing a natural diamond, just know that this took 25 million to 3 billion years for it to be made. So you're wearing this rock that has this incredible strength and energy. And it's also the hardest rock known to man, which is incredible in itself.
Yeah, I think that we don't always take enough time to recognize the sort of scientific history and weight of this particular gemstone. It's quite something.
Absolutely.
So let's jump into this first section. What gives a diamond color? Talk me through the science, Z.
So basically, a diamond is grade in a scale. And we'll see that in the next slide. It's basically from D color all the way to XYZ, and then we get into fancy colors. And by the way, all of the pictures, all the photos that's in the slideshow are owned by us. So these aren't like pictures off of the internet, basically. So what gives a diamond a color is basically there's always trace elements within a diamond. A diamond is 100% carbon, but there's always trace elements, majority of the time. So for example, the element boron will give a diamond the blue color, or nitrogen kind of gives it that pink, brown, yellow color. So it's how much of nitrogen is seeped into this crystal, this structure. And that basically determines, and sometimes it makes it a really nice yellow diamond, and sometimes it makes it like a K color. And you'll see what I mean by that in the next slide.
Great.
So we'll go back to the color after we go through cut.
Yeah. So I'm sure everyone has heard a lot about the so-called 4 C's. It's the first thing that you hear when you're beginning a diamond journey. So let's really break it down and make sure that we understand exactly what those 4 C's are. So the first one we want to talk about is cut. That's the shape, right? So Zarig, explain a little more what all of these different cuts mean.
So there's so much, and there's much more cuts than the ones listed here. There's unique cuts. There's but basically the round diamond has 58 facets, and it has the most amount of facets out of all of the cuts. And light scintillates in the diamond, in the round diamond the most. And that's also why the round diamond is the most prestigious, slightly more expensive if you're buying engagement rings. If it's between a round and oval, depending on your budget, round is always going to be slightly more expensive. And yeah, so these are basically the shapes, and certain cuts. When a diamond is cut, it has to be cut in a specific way. And I'm going to show an example of a good cut and an excellent cut. So in the next slide over here, so we have a pair of diamond earrings on the left and another diamond on the right. So the diamond on the left, you can see how incredible the color is. And there's no way for light to escape within the cut. So it's cut very well. However, the diamond on the right, as you can see, there's these windows where the light is escaping through the diamond, through the crown of the diamond, instead of reflecting back to you. So that's where you can see sort of that brown, white, all on the sides of the diamond. Like in the middle part, you can see the yellow, but then on the outside of the diamond, you see these sort of like windows where the light is escaping through. And this is why it's important to work with a professional when you're buying an engagement ring or you're buying diamond jewelry. Buying a diamond online, most probably because you're not an expert, you're not going to know what you're doing or what you're looking at. whereas a professional knows exactly what they're looking at, what makes an amazing cut, and what doesn't make an amazing cut. And that also dictates the price as well.
Right. So yeah, just looking at these two examples, it's like pretty clear from the naked eye that the one on the left just has so many more facets. When it comes to how these are cut, does it just take a more skilled, craftsman to create the one on the left, or why would they shape the diamond on the right?
It's basically, it's the cutter, it's the craftsman, it's the planning of the diamond, and to make sure that it's cut well. Sometimes the owners of the rough diamond don't want to lose a lot of weight, but sometimes it's just not an amazing diamond. It is what it is. So it's important to work with a highly knowledgeable and craftsman cutter. The majority of diamonds are cut in either India or China, around maybe I would estimate around 95% of diamonds to 98% of diamonds. But the very, very high-end special diamonds are still cut in New York City and in Antwerp in Belgium, as well as a couple of other smaller cities. But it's important to know the cut is just as important as well as the other C's.
Right. And let's actually go back to the prior slide really quickly, because I wanted to look at some more of those shapes. I know you work with a lot of engaged couples and stuff like that. Tell me about what's popular right now, what you see trending, and what people are loving.
So for engagement rings, the past, I would say 7 years, oval diamonds, especially now, are incredibly popular. If I do 10 engagement rings, 8 of which are ovals. Ovals, I think they're an elegant shape, they're beautiful, and they're a bit more fun and interesting than a round. A round is as classic as it gets.
Right.
Emerald cut, for example, you can have an oval and an emerald cut because they're both long, let's say. However, an emerald cut has a heavier bottom. So it will always look smaller than the oval if they're both the same weight. So emerald cut is definitely a very special cut because it doesn't have as many facets as less than half of the facets as a round. And also you have to get a very high clarity in an emerald cut because there isn't a lot of facets. If there's one pinpoint within the emerald or a crystal, it's reflected throughout.
Right.
So I would say ovals are the most popular, as well as elongated cushions. And those are definitely getting a bit difficult to find for certain clients.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, cool. Well, let's move on then and learn a little bit more about the other C's.
So we have here clarity and color. So going back to the color. So first off, I'll go through the clarity. And clarity is basically whenever you buy an engagement ring, a diamond, you're aware that it should come with a GIA certificate or another lab certificate. However, GIA is the most reputable in the industry. So every diamond is categorized within what level of clarity it has, basically how pure it is. So flawless to internally flawless is as best as it can get. And then VVS1, VVS2 is very slight, as you can see, a slight red dot, which is a little pinpoint within the diamond. Right. VS1 and VS2 is when there's an actual crystal, there's a feather in the diamond, which is kind of a bit of a break within the diamond, not a break, but it's called a feather. Or maybe a part of the diamond isn't faceted so well. So that also it'll be a natural where you can see the natural part of the diamond. So that's VS1, VS2. And then SI1 and all the way down SI2, SI3, there's also I1. That stands for slightly included. And it just has inclusions within the diamond. And when you go to SI1, SI2, SI3, you can see it with your naked eye. Whereas up until VS1, VS2, you need a loop to see it, which is at 10 magnification.
Right. Would you say that the bulk of diamonds that we see on the market today have more inclusions or are more on the FL side of the scale? What do you think things end up being weighed towards when you're just looking at general diamonds around stores?
So it definitely depends on the brand, let's say, and on the price point. So if something is an extremely low price point, like if you go on Majuri's website, they list their clarity, and I think it's like I1, I2. So that's not even listed here. I think it's like starting at SI2. So you understand Majuri, whereas like Cartier would have VVS1, VVS2, all the way to VS1. In my opinion, I never worked at Cartier, but the reputable brands always work with VVS to VS2, VS1. Those are like the very high-end brands would work with that clarity. So with me and my jewelry brand, I use VVS diamonds as well as VS diamonds. I never go below VS2. So even when I show clients engagement rings, I like to show them SI1 to VS2. And then once they see the difference, they understand that it is better to go towards, if it's in the budget, to go towards the VS diamond.
Yeah.
And IF and FL are just the creme de la creme, the top of the top. So, and if you're someone, you want to go to Harry Winston and buy a wedding band and you say you want it all flawless, 1,000% they can. I'm sure they have it in stock. It's the best.
Yeah.
And then once we go down to color,
right?
So as you can see in this color scale, it's like pretty obvious. D color all the way we have XYZ. So the color is basically how pure it is. Like, is there any trace elements in there where that gives it that little yellow tint? So nitrogen, like I mentioned, will give that yellow tint or that brownish tint, and it's such a slight tint, but sometimes it can be quite obvious. And on the next slide, I'll let go here. This is all about the color. So over here on the left side is a D color diamond, and on the right side is a WX.
Right, and D is like as good as you can get in terms of color.
It's like incredible. Like seeing it in person, again, it's very difficult to take pictures of diamonds, but you basically, to the naked eye, you can see the difference. Right is WX, left is D color.
Right. And I mean, some people though do prefer the yellower shade. So absolutely. I mean, what do you think of that? How does that change the value? Is it just preference or?
Some people want a diamond with a bit of a yellow tint to match their skin or to match the jewelry or whatever it is. Obviously, the price would definitely go much lower once you get to that range. So a D color diamond is as expensive as it can get. But the lower down you go, the lower you go is basically the less the price is.
Right.
And it's a drastic change.
Right.
So if it's in your budget, that means you can maybe get a bigger diamond, whatever's important to you. Is it how big it is or the color?
Right. And if you want a white seeming, colorless seeming diamond, but you may not have the budget to purchase a D diamond, what would you recommend would be the lowest on the scale that would be sort of white to the naked eye?
I always, whenever I do engagement rings, whenever I create engagement rings for my clients, I always show them, for me, G color is a sweet spot. It's like the best diamond because you're not paying a very large premium for it to be in the first level of the 3, D, E, F.
Right.
G is just the next. Once you go a little lower to H and I, you start seeing the yellow tint. So really I always show my clients, just so they know the difference. This is what an I color looks like. This is what a G color looks like. And this is what a D color looks like. So, and then the majority of the times they will choose the G color. So all the diamonds I use in my fine jewelry brand is F, G color diamonds. I never go below G color. The sort of industry norm is actually GH color. So when you go on, like, let's say Net-a-Porter fine jewelry, they always have it listed the color of the diamonds, and it's usually GH color, sometimes I. So you have to just keep an lookout for it, that there will be a slight tint.
Yeah. And what kind of price differential are we talking about between the colorless range to the near colorless? Is it pretty significant, or is it?
It is pretty significant. I wouldn't have it would probably be double the price.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, it's like, it's pretty significant depending, again, it's like there's so many factors that go into it, how big it is, the clarity, all of these sort of things. But however, if you go from D to G, it's a very big price jump.
Yeah.
So I always recommend G color for my.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
And then if we go down to clarity, I just wanted to show, this is an SI diamond, SI1. And if you just like kind of like get closer to your screen, you can see like a little black in the table. Yeah. Oh, you can't see my mouse. I don't think you can see my mouse.
I can see it actually.
Oh, you can see it. Okay. So yeah. So there's like a black right over here, and there's a couple of other ones, but that's basically what makes it SI. Is it still beautiful? Absolutely. However, if it was I1, then it would affect the sort of sparkle of the diamond because there'd be so many inclusions. But because it was SI1, not as much, not at all.
Yeah. I want to ask about this photo. Is this one of your pieces, or?
Yeah. So this is a diamond ring that we had the diamonds. We sold it. It's no longer in our possession. But this is something that's in our family.
Yeah.
Business.
Wow, it's so unique. It's so cool. It's
a very special, sort of ring. So, and all diamonds I use for my fine jewelry brand is VVS1 to VS2, which is important.
Right.
We went through the color, and now the carat. Yes.
One more question on the pink diamond. Actually, we've talked about colorless to yellow, but where do the other color components, like for a pink diamond, come in?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I didn't even add that in here. So colored diamonds go on a scale of how intensity the color is. So you have fancy, so these are called fancy colors. So you have fancy light pink, fancy pink, fancy intense pink, and fancy vivid pink.
Okay.
And vivid, and then there's also secondary colors. So you can have fancy intense purplish pink, where there's a tint of purple in it, or fancy purple pink, where the purple and the pink are exactly even within the diamond. And it goes the same with yellow diamonds, where it's like fancy intense brownish yellow, where there's a tint of brown as well. So there's this sort of this scale where it's like fancy light, fancy yellow, fancy intense, and vivid. So vivid, you just have to remember, is the top of the top.
And what would this one be that we're looking at? Do you know?
So this would be a fancy intense pink.
Yeah. Are pink diamonds and these other colored diamonds, are they more or less rare than the colorless ones?
So they're exponentially much more rare. So colored diamonds are the rarest of, if you compare a D color and a fancy intense yellow, the fancy intense yellow is always going to be more rare. Because it's just certain countries in the world create these incredible diamonds that were created tens of millions of years ago and even billions of years ago. So you can only find there's only 2 places in the world, 3 places in the world that you can find pink diamonds if you're lucky. Wow. So it's as rare as it can get, absolutely.
That's so interesting. Where in the world, out of curiosity, do you know?
So pink diamonds, normally the most incredible pink diamonds come from a mine called the Argyle Mine in Australia. However, it's like almost depleted. So it may or may not close in the coming years, which again will make the price of pink diamonds jump even higher because these mines are being quite depleted of the natural gemstone. And as well as in South Africa, there's sort of some mines over there that produce pink diamonds. But again, it's 1 in a trillion.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Incredibly rare and really, really incredible when you see it from the rough to the color to the polished end result.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Great.
Okay, cool.
So let's move
on to the 4th C then.
Yes. So this is carat. So carat is obviously very straightforward. It's basically the weight of the diamond. However, whenever I have a lot of engagement ring clients, they're like, I want a 2 carat or a 3 carat diamond. So now within the diamond industry, when you go from 1.98 carats to 2.01, price jumps. So when you go from 1 to 2, the price jumps. However, sometimes the 1.98, not something, it can happen, looks larger than the 2.01. So this is another example of when you work with a professional within the industry, they know. I mean, I can't speak for anybody else, but I always look for the most incredible diamond for the most incredible price to offer to my clients. If I think something is overpriced or not the right price, I will not offer it to my clients. So one thing to always keep in mind is the importance of not just the carat weight. Doesn't really matter the carat weight. It matters what it looks like. And here's an example.
Yeah. I think that's such an important point that we can't stress enough, because especially in the wedding and engagement ring industry, you hear so much about size. Yeah. But as we know, size does not always matter.
Not always.
You really need someone to remind you of that sometimes. So yeah, walk me through these diamonds and their differences and what we're looking at.
So the first, again, ovals, how I said this, ovals are incredibly popular. So the first diamond is actually 3.2 carat. And the second diamond is 3.5. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the first one to the naked eye looks larger, and it just looks larger, and it's basically the way it's cut. The second diamond is a bit of a heavier, we like to call it like a chubbier diamond. So it has like a heavier bottom part. Whereas the first diamond it's more spread out, and it's longer and thinner, and that's also a bit more of the illusion that it looks bigger.
Right. Do they have the same number of facets, or?
Yeah, they have, absolutely. They're both oval, brilliant diamonds. Absolutely. They have the same amount of facets, but it's just how big are the facets as well. So in the first one, the table is much larger than in the second one.
What is the table?
Table is basically the flat part of the diamond. When you look at the diamond, the flat part is basically the table, and then there's a crown, and then the pavilion on the bottom. I didn't put this graph up on because I was like, I don't want to get too technical and lose the audience. But this is a great example of that. So the carat weight doesn't really matter, really. Yeah. Period.
How often would you say that you're able to convince clients to go for a smaller diamond because it's a better quality one, or how often are you sort of changing people's minds about size?
So when I show them a picture like this, and so when I gather, the way I basically work with my clients is like, we'll have a meeting, and then I will show them 3 to 5 options. And I'll show them different color, clarity, size, everything, so they can see the difference of an H color diamond versus G color diamond, etc. So even in this case, I don't know if you can see it through the picture, but these are all, the first 2 diamonds are both G colors. However, the middle one is a nicer G color. It's much more white than the top one. When I first saw the top diamond, I thought it was an H color, one level lower, because I saw that tint of yellow. It's a bit difficult to see through the picture, but when my clients come and see it in person, it makes the world of difference. So I think a lot of people have sort of misconceptions when they just like don't know, because they're not like educated about it, which is the point of this little talk, is for people to be like educated about the fact of size doesn't always matter, and what the different color and clarity mean. And when you work with a professional and someone who's trusting and trustworthy, they know what they're doing. They want the best for you. I always show clients engagement rings I would buy myself. And I'm a 2nd generation jeweler, so I'm quite picky. So I want my clients to have the best of the best.
Yeah. So you mentioned an interesting thing, which is that even though both of those diamonds are technically classified as G color, you wouldn't always, or you don't really see that top one as G. Obviously, some of the other things carat size, cut, those are objective classifications. Color maybe is a little more subjective. Who is determining what color a diamond is? Is there some other power that exists that says this is a G, this is an H?
Yeah, so these both have GIA certificates.
Okay.
So when you put them next to each other, they just don't look like they're the same color. It's as simple as that. So I was like, okay, this is like a sort of a lucky diamond, let's say. In which case I would show my clients and I'm like, look, if you really like this, I can push for a better price. It's also like a negotiation tactic for me. Yeah. So it's important to, majority, this would never happen. This was just a very, very rare occurrence. But I wanted to bring it up to just be like, this can happen as well. So you have to always be aware.
Yeah, yeah. Really good point.
So on to the next. So I wanted to just like make a little slide about like what to ask the jeweler, you know, when you're looking at jewelry and when you're shopping online for jewelry as well. What's the gold quality?
Right. Because, yeah, these are questions we really need to ask and often don't, especially when we're doing online purchases. And especially today when we are so quick to trust brands over the information potentially. So, yeah, walk me through how you would set a diamond and the types of gold that you like to use and you think are best.
So, I always use 18 karat gold because, so what makes something 14 karat, 18 karat, 24 karat, you've heard 24 karat, it's basically how pure the gold is. So when something is 24 karat gold, it's as pure as it gets and it's very yellow, very, very, very yellow and shiny. However, it's very soft. It's a metal and it's extremely soft. So therefore you can't really set diamonds in a 24 karat. In the beginning, I was like, I want to make 24 karat. And then they're like, you can't set diamonds in 24 karat. It's so soft that the diamonds will fall out.
Wow. That's crazy to think about and is like something that most people who aren't educated about metals wouldn't know to think about. They just want highest numbers, best quality, but there definitely are question marks.
Absolutely. And that's also why a lot of 24 karat gold jewelry is just chains. A lot of them are just chains or bangles, bracelets, bangles, because they have to be worn in a place where it's not going to get so banged up, let's say. And it's just gold. It's not, there's no jewelry, there's no diamonds or gemstones on it. So all gold I use is 18 karat gold, which is, very strong, sturdy, and it's much more pure than 14 karat. 14 karat gold means that it's mixed with much more metals. And gold plated, again, if you're buying jewelry online, like make sure you ask, like, do your due diligence, like ask, like when you see the word gold plated, what does that mean? And when you buy something that's gold plated, just know that it's basically a metal under it. It's either sterling silver, whatever it is, and it's gold, thin layer of gold that's plated on the jewelry, and eventually that gold will go away. So it's important to know that like the more you wash your hands, you whatever it is, the gold, and even just oxidization on your skin, the gold color will go away. So it's important to know, to ask yourself like, okay, like this is my budget. What can I get for it? And what's important to me.
Yeah. And do you ever work with other metals like platinum or silver, or are you gold only? Because I know that sometimes platinum, in the past at least, has been popular for wedding bands, for instance.
Yes, absolutely. So all of my engagement rings, unless if they want a yellow gold, 18 karat yellow gold, which has been coming into a trend as well, I always recommend platinum. It's just very sturdy, very and it looks pretty much the same as 18 karat white gold. However, platinum is what I always recommend for bridal, because again, engagement rings and wedding bands are used every single day. Whereas like you're not depending on like the lifestyle you live, you're not going to always be wearing your gold jewelry. You're going to change it up and this and that. So I always recommend platinum for bridal if you want the white gold look, or 18 karat yellow gold. But I never work with silver, no.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. All right. So what's the second important question that you should ask?
What's the quality of diamonds, basically? So when you go to a jewelry store, you're shopping online and you see, like, I've seen this a lot. I see the term near colorless diamonds. that for me is like kind of like a red flag, because they're not telling you what the color of diamonds are. So I always say, like, the jeweler that tells you exactly what's in the jewelry, that's much more trustworthy for me,
Right.
because they're transparent. Transparency is key. Just like how now when you want to buy organic food versus non-organic, like they tell you, or you ask them, is this organic? It's the same thing when it comes to buying diamond jewelry, is ask the company, what does near colorless diamonds mean? What is that on the color range? You know, because it's not going to be DEF color, G color, or else they'd be proud to say. So it seems like they don't really want to tell you. So you got to ask and find out and just know what you're purchasing. That's very, very important.
Very important.
You know, and just ask, what is the total diamond carat weight? Because again, like we see jewelry on Instagram and online, and it looks so nice and big on Instagram, but it's also like a play of lighting and this and that, and then you buy it and it's like tiny.
Right.
So, and I've had instances like that. I had a client, for example, and her husband bought her like a tiny necklace from a major jewelry brand, and it looked really nice in the picture, and he got it, and she's like, I can't even see the diamond. and I paid so much money. And I was like, and she was also used to seeing my quality diamonds and seeing how diamonds are supposed to look and shine.
Right.
So she's like, I asked my husband to return it, and can you make one for us? And obviously it's a bit more expensive, but she got something that she uses every single day and she's proud to wear.
That's so funny.
Again, it's just important, because what looks like in a picture might not be the reality.
Yeah, and I noticed that like diamond tennis bracelets and diamond tennis necklaces have become really popular lately. I mean, I know they've always been popular, but yeah, you don't want to end up with one that is much smaller than you expected. So you really need to think about that total weight, especially when you're purchasing online.
Absolutely, and you have to also again ask the diamond weight and the quality as well. So I see so many diamond tennis bracelets that look amazing on Instagram, and then in person it's just not as white. The diamond's not as good quality. So it's always important to just do your due diligence and ask the jeweler. Don't be shy. When you're buying like a really nice dress for a wedding, you want to see, is it silk? Is it polyester? What is it? You know, and that also determines the price.
Yeah. When it comes to things like a tennis bracelet, for instance, what do you think would be the smallest like individual carat weight that you would recommend? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, exactly. For like the tiny exact diamond. So I have a tennis bracelet on my website, and it's 0.07 carats for each diamond.
Okay.
0.07. So, and I think that's a really nice size. It's like a good size, and that makes a total carat weight of 3.5 carats.
Okay. Yeah. Because you want to make sure that they're big enough to each sparkle, not just little
exactly chips. And it's like, it's a tennis bracelet. Like, it's not like so thin that you're like, wait, what's going on there? Where like you see and you're like, that's a really nice tennis bracelet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I also want to ask about this ring that is on the slide. I know it's one of your pieces from your personal design collection. So can you tell a little bit about that one too?
So this is a Waterfall Dewdrop ring, and this is around 1.1 carats of diamonds. And this, so basically all of those like sort of dewdrops, those tear-shaped pieces all move. Yeah. So it makes like a really fantastic noise when you move it. I'm wearing like the mini version of it where it's just 3 layers, but this is the 5-layer version of it. So this is like the mini sort of, I'm trying to do this. So it's just like a really fun ring. I have these made in Italy. And again, the quality is G color and VS clarity. And yeah, so it's 18 karat rose gold. This is rose gold in the photo. Mm-hmm. So it's all about like having fun. And that's like, for me, jewelry is another form of expression that's having fun.
Love that.
And so over here on this slide, if you can click on our guide to diamonds, and that's like sort of like a little I have a PDF on my website that you can download and just like have this little guide with you wherever you go. Where you're at the jewelry store and you're just like, wait, what color? What is H color? What is SI clarity? You can just like go to this, like save it in your files, and you can go to it, and it's just everything is there and very concise.
That's wonderful. I should also note that Zarig also made a beautiful ring for me, which I wear every day now. It's a double-sided
Rainbow and diamond ring.
Very special to me. So Z, what are your favorite types of diamond jewelry pieces to make and to sell and to work with for clients? Talk a little bit about your work and your preferences.
I love to create custom pieces. Custom pieces, I think, is the most fun for me because it's a one-of-a-kind piece. So I can get as ornate or as simple as the client wants. I sketch a lot, I paint. And whenever a person wants a custom piece, I like do like a sketch for them, and that sketch is theirs. They own it. You know, some clients frame it. So it's really fun. For me, it's about working with high quality gemstones. I love, other than diamonds for me are number one, but I love opals. I think opals are also making a huge comeback. I love colored sapphires, pink sapphires, blue sapphires, rubies, and just color. For me, like my jewelry is all about color as well. So, and I love to create new pieces all the time and just like have fun with it.
Yeah. And when people are thinking about diamonds as an investment today, especially in terms of engagement rings and other major investment pieces, what do you think is popular, and how would you guide them or direct them when it comes to something that will remain valuable for a long time?
I think for sure to get a high quality diamond. It's just so important just to have that high quality diamond, because that's always going to be wanted and needed. So I recommend that people buy a really nice G color. When I say high quality, I say G color, not below G color. And sorry, what was the other part of the question?
Just what would, last forever in terms of value. And I think we've already gone through a lot of it, which is just quality
is the most important. Work with a professional. I mean, I have a friend once who, like, her husband was like, I'm gonna buy a diamond online, and he bought something online, and it just like, and I asked him, I was like, what did you pay for this? And I was just like, all right, like, that's what happens, I mean, you could have gotten something much nicer if you worked with a jeweler, but it's important to work with a professional, work with somebody who knows this craft. I wouldn't, go and sew myself a dress just because I don't want to pay for a dress. It's the same thing as working with a professional makes the world of difference, because they're the ones who are going to guide you and tell you this is a great investment. And we have a lot of clients that that buy very large diamonds or in colored diamonds as an investment purpose, but it's also something really beautiful and incredible to wear.
Yeah. How can people avoid getting scammed also?
Yeah, that's I asked myself that as well, to be honest, because it can be easy. Like, if you're somebody who just doesn't know anybody, then how would you know? So in that case, I would do a lot of research, go to multiple jewelry stores, look up prices online, see if they match up, see if, like, you have to just do so much more research on your own to find somebody you trust. You can always reach out to me. Obviously, I'll be more than happy to help, but it's not easy to find somebody you trust if you don't know anybody in the industry. So, like, for example, me, our friends know me, so then there's somebody that they can trust within the industry. So it's not easy, but you just got to do the research and do your due diligence on your own.
And for a big investment piece diamond, what kind of paperwork or certification should we ask to see in advance when we're making that kind of an investment?
Always a GIA diamond certificate, which GIA stands for Gemological Institute of America.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for the certificate. look it over, make sure that this is exactly the diamond, the certificate for this diamond. Majority of, if it's an investment, the GIA certification number is inscribed in the diamond, on the diamond, sort of the edge side of the diamond. It's called the girdle. So, and you can, it takes a very long time to find it, but once you do, you ask the person, like, show me the number, the inscription on the diamond. And with a loop, you can't see it with your bare eyes. You can barely see it with the loop. It's very difficult to find. But once you see it, you see it, and just make sure the numbers match up. So always make sure that it comes with the GIA certificate and the numbers match up to the inscription. And again, if a certificate is over 5 years old, ask them for a new certificate. Be like, I want an updated certificate. Sometimes people will come with a certificate that's like a format from the 90s. And I'm like, oh, that's not going to work for me. We need to make a brand new certificate because we're in the year 2021. So always make sure it's an updated certificate, and make sure it's inscribed with the GI certificate number.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a really good point. And at what size diamond do those certificates start being important?
So depending, for example, I made a band for a client that was half a carat rounds all around. It was a wedding band, but half a carat all around. It was pretty massive. And she was like, you know what? I want all certificates for every single diamond on it. And it's half a carat, but it's like a solid piece. It was like 10 carats of diamonds on it. Not 10 carats, like 5 carats. But so you can have a certificate for as small as a 20 point, if it's special, it's worth it. However, for engagement rings, I do engagement rings, even if you have a 1 carat engagement ring, make sure you have a certificate. Absolutely.
Yeah. See, do you have any favorite diamond stories or favorite rings that you've made lately that are unique or different that you think maybe tell us a little bit about where the diamond market is going?
This is a unique ring I made for myself. I haven't even had it photographed yet.
Wow.
These are called rose cuts. So this is a completely other cut. So this cut is originating from India from thousands and thousands of years ago. So it's like a very flat cut.
Yeah.
And these are all D-colored diamonds. And I put like all diamonds all around it. And I just think it's so this is how it looks like on. So you see the skin.
Yeah. Very cool.
So this is like a new custom. This is like a one-of-a-kind piece. These diamonds, I just found them. I sourced them. I was having fun with them. I was I just want a diamond diamond sort of ring to wear that just goes with my everyday. So I wear this almost every single day. This is this is almost 3 carats of diamonds, and every single one of these I made a GIA certificate for every single one of these, and I actually bought it for a much lower price. And once I got the GIA certificate, the value went up because the seller thought that they were all G colors, but they ended up being D colors.
Oh, wow. Good find.
It's fun. It's like a treasure hunt sometimes.
Yeah. What is that sourcing experience like? Do you work with specific people around the world, or how do you know who to go to find your diamonds? Or is that the secret sauce that you can't tell any of us?
The biggest thing is just to know a lot of people. And you know me, I'm a very social person, and you just have to know a lot of people because you just never know where this amazing sort of treasure is going to come from. It's a very special industry. I would say that I love the diamond industry. It's still very old school, where people shake hands on $1 million deal. Your word and your reputation is your commodity. I mean, it's what opens the door for you. So it's a very cool industry.
Yeah. So I have also been hearing about artificially made diamonds, and I'm curious if you have thoughts on that industry. I know that there are some startups that are making, new diamonds now versus the diamond world that you know and love and exist in, and sort of how you think those two things may evolve over the next decade or so.
So the way I like to describe, so we those are in industry terms called lab-grown diamonds. So there's natural diamonds and then lab-grown diamonds. And I think the best sort of analogy I've been able to come up with to explain to clients is if you are somebody who wants to buy a Chanel handbag, and a Chanel handbag costs, let's say, $8,000, and you really, really want it. However, you're willing to pay. There's somebody who's making the same exact Chanel handbag out of the same leather, the same craftsmanship, the same everything, but it's not Chanel that's making it for $2,000. That fake handbag is never going to have a resale value, whereas the real Chanel handbag is always going to have a resale value, and a majority of the times it's for more money. So lab-grown diamonds can be created they can just be created. Natural diamonds have a limited amount on this earth, on this planet. So that's the first thing. Second thing is there's an energy to it. An energy you can't create in a lab in 6 months, in 8 months. There's an energy to these diamonds, to these stones, that when you touch it, I have clients that are like, I don't feel protected when I'm not wearing my diamond little necklace. There's an energy to it because it's taken hundreds of millions and even billions of years to be made. So it's just something very different. Whereas lab-grown diamonds, first off, are quite expensive in my opinion. They have an insane markup, whereas natural diamonds do not. And there's no resale value. Whatever you pay for it, there's absolutely no resale value. And you're going to know that this isn't the right sort of piece for you. Sorry, 1 minute.
Sure.
So it's just very, for me, it's just very important to, I'm a huge natural diamond girl.
Yeah. What is the craziest diamond you've ever worked with?
I can't, unfortunately, really share that information. I would say it's a colored diamond. There's some incredible diamonds out there, for very high net worth individuals. So unfortunately, I really can't share that with you, but it's a very fun, incredible. There's diamonds that you see it once, you'll never see it again in your life. That's how rare they are.
So for some people who have access to someone like you, they will go shopping for diamonds through an individual and get the handheld experience. For others who don't, do you have recommendations for brands that you think do a good job with their diamonds that people can trust usually?
I mean, the number one people in the industry is Harry Winston, Cartier, Graf, Tiffany's. I think Tiffany's does such an incredible job because not only do they have their own lab, so their diamonds don't come with GIA certificates. They come with their own laboratory certificates. However, they do an incredible job of showing where this diamond came from. Obviously, you pay a premium for that, a huge premium. But I do think, the top brands, they've been around for so long, and it's for a reason.
Right. When you were studying this in your grad program, what were the most interesting things or shocking things that you learned? I knew you grew up in a diamond family, so you were already so aware of this industry and the basics, but was there anything that surprised you through your educational process that you think other people may also not know, besides, of course, all of the important basics that we've gone through today?
Something that's shocking. I wouldn't say anything has been very shocking to me because, again, when I was a kid, like just being exposed to it all was just the excitement and this and that. And I really remember, like, even as a kid, my father would show me this incredibly rare colored diamond, and it would be like literally the color of the Caribbean Sea. And it's just that blue green color. And he's like, remember this color because you're never going to see it again. So I think what's really fun to see, I would say, is like seeing historical diamonds go up for auctions at Christie's and Sotheby's. So when you saw like Elizabeth Taylor's whole entire collection, that was shocking in the sense of like, wow, this incredible icon was, I think, like the biggest jewelry collector, period, was Elizabeth Taylor. So seeing that auction, it lasted 9 hours at Christie's, New York. So
you'll have to snag some of those pieces next time around.
Exactly. Sorry, my phone keeps ringing.
Oh, that's okay. If you could purchase any diamond for yourself or your family, or what's either that or what's the next piece you want to work on and create?
Next piece, I want to work a lot with much more colored diamonds. I think that's like just very cool. There's this one really cute little diamond that I just saw at one of my friends' showroom, and it's like a marquee, but like long and thin, and it's like a nude color. It's like a very soft brown color, and I just like saw this very cool ring I can make out of it with rose gold to bring out that like pinkness out of the brown from it. So that's what I want to work on, is like sort of creating and just looking out for like really cool, unique colored diamonds. That's sort of where I want, my brand to go towards.
Yeah. I think that's so important. People think of the diamonds as being such a very sort of serious gem. It's
you have so much fun with it.
But yeah, exactly.
Wear it and have fun every day. Like depending on my outfit, I wear a different ring, a different piece of jewelry. It's an expression. It's like the cool top you're wearing and really fun jewelry.
Yeah. And I want you to tell us a little bit about your brand as well, Zarig Jewels, and how that's going and some of the next steps for that. Because for those who don't know, it's been 2 years now, right? Just 2 years exactly.
2 years.
Zarig launched her own brand. So yeah, I've been so excited to watch that journey. And yeah, I want to hear more about what you're working on there.
So it's been really fun. I want to here on this slide, if you click on the logo, you can go to my website. It's been really like a blast. I've learned a lot. I must say I've learned a lot. I'm not where it's still evolving. My brand is still evolving. In terms of design, in the beginning, I wanted to do everything. And now I'm like, you know what? I want to hone it down and just create a couple of like really incredible pieces that will make me much more stand out and well known. So it's been very fun. The best part about this, I must say, is I connected with an incredibly like established fine jewelry designer, and he's given me so much advice because he's like, Zarig, I was you. And it took him so long to get to where he is now. It took him 15 years to get to where he is now. And he's like, Zarig, for the first 5 years, you're going to be changing a lot. You know, so like when he said that to me, I was like, oh, okay, it's going to take time. But I mean, I'm having a blast. My brand is growing every single year. And for me, it's all about quality. It's about using high quality diamonds, high quality craftsmanship. I have my craftsmen make jewelry for the top brands. So to use that same set of hands to make my jewelry is an incredible honor, actually.
Yeah.
So, and it's the people I've met throughout the engagement. I mean, I never thought I'd do a lot of bridal, but I really enjoy it because I'm with people at the happiest moments in their lives.
Yeah.
And I always like give really great advice to my grooms. Don't get nervous on the week you're going to propose because they always get nervous.
I also know that some of your pieces have been on red carpets lately, and you've been able to work with some stylists. That has to be pretty fun too.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. It means that the jewelry isn't with me and it's with them. So I miss my babies, but it's been a lot of fun just seeing my jewelry on these really amazing, incredible artists.
Yeah. All right, so we have 2 minutes left. So I want to do a really quick recap of the 4 C's and the questions that we should ask. So let's do like our 30-second Diamond
so
101.
The recap is basically cut, knowing the cut that you want to make sure it's cut very well. Excellent cut. Make sure on the certificate it says excellent cut, and also work with a professional. Cut, color, make sure, again, once you download that PDF, it's all there. You don't even have to think about it. The color, D to XYZ color, there's a whole range of colors in there. Clarity, don't get an SI if you can help it, unless if it's an incredible SI. And you again, when you work with a professional, they're able to tell you. And carats, which is big isn't always, doesn't mean much. The carat weight doesn't mean as much as you think it does.
Yeah.
And it's important to ask your jeweler when you're buying jewelry, what's the gold, what's the total carat weight, and what is the diamond quality? That is the most important thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I have learned so much, both over the years, just being friends with you, but also just in this hour together. So thank you so much, Zarig, for sharing with NYC Jewelry Week. And I hope that everyone has access to her helpful guide now and should check out her brand. Zia obviously makes gorgeous pieces, and I wear mine every single day. And it is still very sparkly. So
thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, thank you so much to you both. What an amazing and educational overview. It's kind of funny that, there's a lot of, there's a lot of industry secrets, but when you're talking about diamonds, you're talking about something that a lot of people are going to engage with at some point in their life. That pun was not even intentional. But people don't necessarily always have access to the resources or even know where to look for this kind of information. So this has just been such a great overview. I hope everyone is checking out that guide. I posted the link to it in the chat, so we really appreciate you sharing that additional resource. And I really feel like that this is a conversation that people can keep coming back to. So thank you, Raisa. Thank you, Zarig, for sharing all this fantastic information and for being here with us at Jewelry Week today.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Raisa.
All right. Okay, we're going straight into the next, folks. As I always like to tell you, we have an action-packed lineup, so I'm not going to spend too much time introducing this next program because they've got a great lineup for you. But just to kick things off, Art Jewelry Forum and the Jewelry Library present Jewelry Stories Live. They're bringing you a number of amazing creators from around the world, and I'm going to hand off to Yvonne Montoya from AJF and Karen Davidoff from the Jewelry Library. Welcome you both to the stage.
Thank you, Alex. And thank you, New York City Jewelry Week, for this great opportunity. Yvonne and I have had so much fun working together on this, and we are delighted to present true life stories by an international roster of jewelry artists, writers, and enthusiasts. These stories, you'll see, will reveal, reflect on, and remind us of the power of jewelry, and they are a testament to the community of jewelry as well. So thank you for that, AJF and Yvonne. And before I hand over the mic to Yvonne and introduce our incredible, she's going to introduce our incredible line of storytellers. Many of them, by the way, maybe even most, making their storytelling debuts on this virtual stage. So we have one note. The storytellers will not be able to hear applause as in real life, but by all means, cheer them on in the chat. So take it away, Yvonne.
Thanks so much, Karen. It has been an honor to work with you throughout this entire process, and a real privilege to work with our storytellers that are going to be presenting today. So on behalf of myself and the AJF board, we're grateful to collaborate with the Jewelry Library on this project for New York City Jewelry Week. Okay, I think we should just jump right into it and get started right away. Let me introduce our first storyteller, Caiyang Yin. She's a maker and a professor at San Diego State University. And right now she's in New York City for Jewelry Week. Take it away, the lovely Caiyang.
Hi, everybody. So here's my story. In May 2011, I had just finished my graduate studies at the University of Illinois. And when I graduated, I won a fellowship. And I proposed to study Dutch contemporary jewelry. So in July of 2011, I left for Amsterdam. I went to work for Huisbacher as a research assistant to facilitate this work. And by day, I worked on whatever Huis wanted me to. I was making coffee, I was copy editing his English language newsletters, and working on projects for Kihapura. And by night, I wrote articles and reviews for AJF. I worked on my fellowship project, for which I interviewed an amazing roster of jewelers, gallerists, theorists in the Netherlands, including someone you'll hear from later on today. I had so many amazing conversations and saw so much amazing jewelry. I was really living my jewelry dream. And to top it all off, I met my person, Colin. So a romance ensues. Our first date was to an opening at Gallery Raw. And as a metal worker, he's an auto body technician. So he kind of could look at what we did as jewelers through his own craft lens. So during this time, a jewelry friend of mine got engaged, and their partner, who shall remain unnamed, purchased a ring from a chain store. Gasp. So my friend was really upset and in a predicament where they had to tell their partner that they wanted something else. They didn't end up getting married, by the way. So this was all happening, and I explained to Colin that buying jewelry for a jeweler is very tricky. We have very particular tastes and wants, and not just anything will do. And this conversation left an impression, apparently. So about 6 months passed, and my research position at Huisbacher Studios started to draw some scrutiny from Dutch immigration. And so I'm a planner, and so I had, a bunch of opportunities that I was trying to work out. I had 3 or 4 teaching gigs that I had applied for in the US, and I had some promising interviews. And at the same time, I was looking for opportunities to stay in the Netherlands, like PhD programs and artist residencies. And I was looking at a PhD program in The Hague, and Colin came with me to go on a tour of the campus. And on the train back from The Hague, we were talking about my USA job interviews and what would happen if I got one of those jobs. And getting married came up as a possible solution to our possible problem. So fast forward a bit, we go on a trip up north in the Netherlands to a town called Leeuwarden, which is in Friesland. And we were going up there to do a thing called Waterlopen, which is mud flat hiking. So you, using a tide table, you wait until the water is really low and you can walk out on the watershed on the sea floor. And it's kind of dangerous. You have to go with a guide, and you can go out and you can observe the sea life. You can look at the fauna and flora of the sea floor. And so we walked until sunset. And at the end of the walk, we were back on the beach, safe and alone. And I love collecting rocks and shells and anything on the ground, really. And Colin started collecting shells. He's kind of humoring me. And he picks up a shell and he yells. He's kind of a little, a few meters away. And he yells, "Look at this, look at this." And he kind of runs over and he puts it in my hand. And it was a full shell, like 2 halves together. And I'm not sure if he had the shell in his pocket the whole time or if he just found it and, while I wasn't looking, but inside was a ring. And it wasn't just any ring. So jewelers know how to make a ring, right? It's one of the first things we learn how to do. But auto body technicians do not get trained how to make a ring. He spent a full day on the clock, by the way, shame, trying to figure it out. And so what he did is he took a 3mm round copper electrical wire and he stripped off the plastic coating and he carefully hammered it flat. He forged it perfectly straight and flat. And he had borrowed one of my rings from my jewelry box and to figure out what size I was. And he matched it to a socket wrench that he had. And he wrapped his perfectly flat piece of wire around the socket wrench. And then making it into a perfect circle, which, as we know, we don't do that when we make a ring in jewelry. And then he welded it closed with a MIG welder. And it's just a copper band, but it's better than anything that he could have ever bought or commissioned. It's my most prized possession. And that's my story.
Thanks so much, Caiyang. Oh my goodness. Now that is romance. The best proposal story I think I've ever heard. Thanks so much. Okay, next up is Sogand Nobahar, who's in Italy right now. And through her practice, she goes beyond the boundaries to share her voice and help others be different in their life. Welcome, Sogand.
Hi, thank you, Juan. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited also to share for the first time this story about how everything got started for me. Since I was a little girl playing with my mom's jewelry, I've always dreamed of making jewelry myself. I was born in Iran, but I moved to Italy when I was 23. After studying and working in the corporate and academic world, finally, in 2016, when I read about a contest in Italy where you had to design a piece of jewelry for International Women's Day that brings the attention to the issue of violence against women, I decided to enter the contest. I started my research and I found so much anger towards men, and everyone seemed to talk about how men should behave. So of course, I wanted to find an inspiration for a design based on what everybody was saying. But at some point, I kind of felt that I didn't agree, even though I come from a male-dominant culture, and believe me, I know how it feels to not be treated equally. But I kept wondering, what if we go in another direction? I started thinking about once when I was in Iran. In a shared taxi, I was sitting in the back with a man and woman, and I was in the middle. I was really uncomfortable because I didn't have enough space to move, and the man on my left was sitting with his legs and arms really wide open, kind of pressing me with his elbow. And I was forced to push myself towards the woman on my right, which she was whispering in my ear continuously that, don't worry about me, get closer to me, get comfortable. But I was thinking, why? I don't want to be pressed. I don't want to push. I just want my space, like my right. So I just simply told to the man, look, excuse me, could you please sit in a more appropriate way? And he was like, what do you mean? He didn't even notice what I meant. And the woman still was trying to make me understand to leave the situation alone and don't make a scene, it doesn't worth it, whatever. But I just really in a calm way told him again, look, you are sitting in this way, really making me uncomfortable. It's getting my space, I can move. And he was like suddenly, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I don't sit like this. Then he changed his position and he was so careful till the end of the ride. So yes, I decided to go into the opposite direction and not show rage towards men. I thought if we are not satisfied from something, we should start the change from ourselves. We cannot stay in the mud and accept suffering just because society has told us to. As a result, I chose the lotus flower as my inspiration because it grows out of the mud towards life and freedom. It's a symbol of purity, power, and delicacy all at the same time. I submitted my design, and a few weeks later, my lotus flower cuff was one of only 20 accepted designs for the exhibition. Finally, the opening day has arrived. I was so stressed because we were a little bit late. We couldn't find parking space, and especially when I saw a huge line heading downstairs to the cellar where they were presenting the pieces. I just stood there sadly and waited like others, but my partner told me, tell people you are one of the designers and go inside. I'm gonna wait for you here. I tried to go further, but it was too crowded. So at the end, I just stayed there on the stairs and tried to listen to what they were saying in the microphone. And I heard that they were announcing the third place designer and thanking her for participating. At this moment, I was really disappointed because I missed the first part, and really, really out of curiosity, asked people around me, do you know who they called for now? And a woman next to me said, kind of, the first person they called for the first prize, it was a strange name with a B in it. Sorry. I was like, could you please remember the name? And she said, no, not really, I'm sorry. Again, I insisted with really, really difficulty. Asked her, was it like Nobahar? And she was like, oh yeah, it was this. That night was one of the best nights in my life. And I knew finally I was on the right track. I just needed to listen more to my inner voice, even if it sometimes seems risky or wrong, or it means going to the opposite direction, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Sogand. That is just a beautiful example of how we can practice everyday bravery. I think. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly mention that it's also my job to upload in the chat message window everybody's name and their Instagram handle. And I've been doing it and it's not showing up. So I promise that on our Instagram for AJF and the Jewelry Library, we'll make sure everybody's name and contact information is there. Send me an email if you have any questions. I'm really sorry about that teensy little glitch. But that was Sogand Nobahar. And our next storyteller is Lisbeth Den Besten. She's from the Netherlands. Hi, Lisbeth. She wears so many different hats. I know she probably doesn't even need an introduction. She's an art historian, a writer, a curator, and she's also one of the first people that I met when I started with AJF. So I am very proud to call her my friend. Welcome, Lisbeth.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to tell you a story about my dad. My dad was a poet, and in my earliest memory, I see him sitting in the living room in his chair with a notepad on his lap, writing. Not that he was writing poetry the whole day, but writing was also part of his job. Poetry was very important to him. We lived in Amsterdam on a second floor, 5-room apartment that was totally furnished with books. Even my parents' bedroom was furnished with books. When my dad was in his late 70s, we discovered that he was not well, and we suspected him of dementia. But my father was a clever man. He was very smart, very intelligent, also socially intelligent, and he managed to fool us and many people for long years. Even after my mother died, unexpectedly, we were able to have him live alone in his own house among his books until the situation was no longer tenable. And then he had to move to a home, which was horrible for him and for us. In this period, my book on jewelry was published. And one day I thought, well, let's just take it and see what happens. So I took the book to him and he grabbed it and he read my name. And then he said, oh, but that means that you wrote this book. My daughter wrote this book. And I said, yes, yes. And he was delighted. He was so happy and proud. And he wanted to tell everyone in the room, look, my daughter, she wrote this book. He also made a very nice word joke with the word jewelry by translating it directly in Dutch, juwelerij. It's a not existing word, but it's a word everyone in the Netherlands will somehow recognize. And my husband and I still use it every day. Well, what could we do with my dad? We could read books with him, but it was difficult. And when we discovered that poetry books were important to him, we decided to bring his own poetry books, because then he would read his name, Ad en Besten, would say, oh, but that's me. And then he would start reciting his poetry beautifully from cover to cover. So he couldn't walk anymore. He couldn't talk anymore because he couldn't find the words anymore. But he was able to read his own poetry in a beautiful way, just like he used to do, and even making jokes and recalling things from the past. That time, that period, we discovered that my father was not only a poet, but that he was poetry, that poetry was the core of who he was. It was his essence, and it was the last that was left of him. In this period, I began preparing for his impending end. And I wanted to do something with his poetry, because poetry was so important for him and also became more important for me. At that time, there was a Dutch jeweler who was making sashes of woven Japanese beads. And she worked together with a Dutch poet, and she would weave lines of poetry in these sashes. So I contacted her and I asked her if she would like to make a sash for me with a line from a poem of my dad. And yes, she agreed. And I proposed 3 different lines, and we discussed these a bit. And then we decided to take one. It is rather mysterious, a bit surreal. It reads in English, I must be a mollusk of no weight. So she started making it, and it took quite some time. But when I could pick it up, I was happy with it, very happy, but I didn't dare to show it to my dad. And why was that? I think because it felt as if I had done something illegal. I had taken one line from a poem by him, and I had transformed it into a piece of jewelry, into a thing, a wearable thing, a piece of jewelry, my world for his world. Anyway, it was not long after this that my father passed away on the last day of March, 92 years old. And on his funeral, I wore my sash with his line of poetry in it. And I was really, it felt well, it felt good. But it was only recently that I found out that this poem was published in a book, the only book of poems of my dad, that was dedicated to one of his 3 children. And the title of this book is Against My Loss. Which reads so much different now that you know how much he had lost the last 15 years of his life. And the book is dedicated to me, to Elisabeth Laetitia, for her birth. I think everything fell into place, and now I am so happy that I dared to transform a line of poetry, a line of a poem, into a piece of jewelry forever. Thank you for listening.
I love the line, the simplicity of everything fell into place. You know, when we're going through these life-changing experiences, we can't imagine how things are going to come together, and somehow they always do.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Lisbeth. Thank you so much. Okay, folks, our next storyteller is De'Ara Jones. She's in Savannah, Georgia. She's a maker and educator and passionate about all things jewelry, especially large, one-of-a-kind earrings. Welcome, De'Ara.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for allowing me to be here. So I grew up in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Petersburg, Virginia, with my mother, my father, and my 2 sisters, Sierra and Tiara. Growing up, my family did not have a lot of money. So me and my sisters used to come up with creative ways for us to have fun. Inside of our kitchen, there was a large pile of stored plastic bags. And me and my sisters would always run over to that same corner, and we would quickly take our shoes and our socks off and slide the bags on our feet. And we would tie the bags really tight. And then next thing you know, our kitchen was turned into a skating rink. And we would go across the floors so fast, back and forth. And the tiles also gave us enough slip underneath our feet. With those same plastic bags, we would even create our own Barbie doll clothes. We would make anything from bikini tops to dresses, as well as skirts. And the thing that topped it all off was when we would go throughout the house to find our old shoes that we could no longer wear, and we would take the shoelace to create Barbie doll hair extensions, and that was so much fun. It is through all of those memories that allowed me to gravitate toward art at a very young age. Not only that, but even though I enjoyed making my own things by finding a lot of different things throughout my house, I sometimes wished that I could receive more gifts and presents throughout the year, especially on my birthday, since I never received a birthday gift whenever my birthday came along. Every year for my birthday, my parents will always go to the store to buy a store-bought cake, maybe a dinner like a Salisbury steak, or even redeem a free Burger King coupon for a birthday kids meal. Those traditions for my family remained the same until 2007 when my father passed from liver cancer. After I graduated from high school, I decided to attend Virginia State University to pursue my love for art. However, when I enrolled, I went back and forth from one major to the next. I started off in painting, then I went to ceramics, then I went over to animation, then fashion, and then finally I went back to ceramics, and then I eventually graduated 6 years later because of that. After I graduated from Virginia State University with my bachelor's degree, I then decided to move to Georgia in 2016 so that I could pursue jewelry by receiving my master's from Savannah College of Art and Design. It was during that time while I also still struggled with who I was, as well as just having a lot of fear about me being an artist. However, I eventually learned that my professors, as well as a lot of my peers, were more like family, and they were there to help me along the journey. Throughout that journey, I met one of my good friends named Mason. He was an undergrad student. Every time he came into the studio, I would automatically get super excited because we always had amazing conversations. Not only that, but we will also talk about our studio practice and, ways to help each other. We talked about some of our favorite artists, as well as some of the music that we like. One day, I remember coming into the studio talking to Mason about my birthday coming up within a few days. However, on my birthday, I actually did not go in because I was sick. So after a few days passed, I eventually went back to the studio when I was feeling better, and Mason came into the studio with a tissue paper wrapped gift. And he looked at me and smiled and said, "Happy birthday." And I honestly could not believe it because it was literally one of the first gifts I ever received on my birthday. As I began to unravel the gift, I saw a beautiful rustic wooden necklace, and each piece was handmade and drilled individually. Not only that, but for the actual necklace that he made me, he also made the chain as well. So it's made out of sterling silver wire that has a hook on each individual link. Not only that, but he also made it with a sterling silver forged piece of metal, as well as a bronze casting that is also attached to the necklace. I was super excited when I received this necklace. So a few days later, I decided to actually try it on and wear it. I then realized a few flaws. The necklace did not have an actual clasp on it for me to open it and put it on and take it off. So I had to literally just take one of my nails to kind of just pry one of the links open so I can kind of put it on and off. And then it became a scavenger hunt for me. Not only that, but the more I wore the necklace, I realized that It began to scratch my neck as well as my chest. And then I finally realized that the necklace even then began to tickle me, and I had to consistently keep adjusting it. A few days later, I then just realized the only way for me to just wear this necklace is to maybe just wear a turtleneck or just wear a top where it just prevents skin contact. All in all, my necklace now lives inside of my jewelry organizer in my bedroom. And every time I look at it, it reminds me of my friendship with Mason. It also reminds me of how I used to, as a child, go throughout my house looking for things to create things with, just as Mason did when he created this beautiful necklace. And lastly, this necklace reminds me that although it may not be perfect, it still reminds me of those special times and memories as I was when I was a child, when I got my birthday cake as well as my Burger King kids meal. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, De'Ara. I can feel your enthusiasm come all the way through to San Antonio, Texas. Thanks so much. And I can also feel like that tickling and the little bit of scratching as if I'm wearing it. So thanks for the experience.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. Our next storyteller is Melody Drummond Hanson. She's in San Francisco, California. Melody is a lawyer by profession and a jewelry enthusiast at heart. Welcome, Melody.
So when I already didn't have much.
Melody, we're having some technical issues. It sounds like your sound is off a little bit. Are you, is your connection strong?
Yeah.
There's a lot of feedback.
Does this help?
Let's see. No, I don't think so.
Melody, are you maybe using an external mic or something that you can unplug? If you just use the computer, it might solve the issue.
Yeah, let me try it.
Oh, you're on mute.
Is that better? All right, great. I'm actually on the road in LA, which is part of my problem. So when I was young, jewelry didn't have a lot of meaning for me. I grew up in a working poor family, and we didn't have any heirloom wedding rings or strings of pearls that had crossed oceans with stories of a great mysterious past. Don't get me wrong, I liked jewelry. I loved getting my ears pierced at Claire's and getting to choose between the fake gold studs and the diamond earrings. And on my third piercing, I went wild and chose the hearts. And I'd love to go to the local head shop and choose the perfect sterling silver turtle ring from among the bongs and ponchos and incense and blacklit posters. But I never really felt attached to any particular piece of jewelry. It just felt like it cast in metal your place in the social hierarchy, your wealth, your school, your romantic success. But all that changed for me when I got my charm bracelet. And my uncle bought this bracelet for me. He and my mom were really close, and he treated my brother and me much more like a son and daughter than a nephew and niece. My uncle would always buy me that thing that was just a little too frivolous or expensive for my mom, who was a single mom, to buy, like Calvin Klein perfume or that Roger Rabbit doll at Blockbuster Video. And he was never worried about spoiling me, even though my grandmother, who had 11 kids, tried to warn him that too much love can ruin a child. She'd say to him, "Mike, she just wants attention." And my uncle would always respond, "And I'm going to give it to her." Still, it was amazing that he would think of getting me a bracelet because, like Daddy Warbucks in that movie Annie, he never had a little girl. He had no kids of his own, and he himself had been orphaned when his father died. in World War II. But I think this bracelet was to my uncle less like jewelry and more like a historical document. He'd take my brother and me and my grandmother and his godson Brad on these trips across the United States to see national parks and to go on vacation in all those places that families go, but he never got to go. And so I could mark these places with charms as souvenirs. And my bracelet started out as just an empty series of silver rings waiting to be filled with experiences on these trips that my uncle would call making memories. And, you know, when we went to Las Vegas, I could pick a pair of dice to represent Las Vegas. Or when we went to Florida, an alligator, sure, but which one? I picked the one with hinges so I could imagine it zigzagging its way through the Everglades. And in Cape Cod, I had a difficult choice between a mermaid and an oyster with a pearl inside. And as we went across the country, seeing the deepest this and the highest that, my charm box got fuller and fuller. And I would love to take out these charms from time to time and admire all their tiny little details, like Mickey Mouse's shiny enameled red shorts and yellow shoes. But even though I kind of knew my way around needle nose pliers, I left genuine pewter charms firmly attached to their $6.99 price tags. And the Statue of Liberty lay on her side instead of raising her torch to the sky. About 10 years ago, I lost my uncle to cancer. And I took my charm box and I put it in the back of a drawer. I just felt really guilty to have not put these charms on the bracelet. And while I continued to love to travel, I didn't buy any more charms and I rarely visited that box. These scattered charms just felt like little pieces of myself that might never make a whole again. But this year, after being stuck inside for so long, my husband and I were really grateful to travel again. And we decided to take our dream trip to Italy. And on the last day of the trip, we visited the Colosseum. And we saw crumbling walls and marble seats and graffiti that was thousands of years old. My uncle would have loved that trip. It was like the History Channel had come to life. And as the sun set on our final day and we were leaving the Colosseum, I insisted that we go to the gift shop. And I went straight for the jewelry section. And I perused all the gladiator helmets and the classical columns, and then chose the perfect charm for Rome, a she-wolf. And I brought her home. And maybe I will put her on my bracelet, but now I know it's okay if I don't. Thank you.
Thanks, Melody. That was a beautiful portrait of your uncle. Thanks for telling your story and sharing it with us. Okay, this is probably a good time. I'm just going to check the time. It's my time, 12:07, 1:07 in the East Coast. Looks like we're doing great. We're leading into our last two stories, all of them truly expressing the power of jewelry in a very unique, compelling way. We're so thankful that you're with us because these stories are meant to be told. So our next storyteller is Raisa Bump. She's in Portland, Oregon. She's a jewelry maker and an enthusiast, but I know her best as AJF's board chair, a thoughtful individual, and a great lover of this field. Welcome, Raisa.
Thank you, Yvonne, Karen with the Jewelry Library, all of you watching all of these fantastic stories. So when I was 6 years old, a college senior came to live with our family for a semester. And part of the arrangement was that she would babysit me. And during that time, she taught me how to bead. As a little girl with 3 older brothers and a younger sister, I just fell head over heels for Naomi. we'd get to it, and she'd pull out her biggest beads, needles, and the fishing line, and she'd set me up to string beads or weave on the bead loom. Some years later in middle school, I found this small puke green fishing lure box with some remnants from that time. And needless to say, it set me off on and rekindled that interest of mine. And I became this tween who just sought out bead stores like some other kid at candy store. My go-to favorite was less than 30 minutes from the house in an epicenter of Hippieville, Woodstock, New York. It was big and spacious. There were these tables just full with these organized boxes of beads from around the world. And the walls were just covered with all the things you could ever need, and like beautifully colorful hanks of beads hanging like necklaces on the wall too. And I'd take their little baggies and very carefully and thoughtfully make my selections of the day and then pay for them with my hard-earned babysitting money. Pretty soon, friends and family were buying me beads and boxes and books, anything to keep my interest and my learning happening, and also to start to organize and keep together this growing amass of bead and bead supplies. Back on the home front, I would quietly leave everybody else and go be by myself in the room, lay down on the floor, beads out in front of me, and make lacy collared necklaces and long fringy earrings. And I proudly wore everything that I made. Until in high school, at some point, I started taking commissions and replaced that babysitting money with making jewelry for others, and then moved on. So I ended up at art school, and I was on a co-ed floor freshman year in the dorm. And the senior RA, Leo, he called for a show and tell. And I knew just what to bring. So we all gathered around, the 15 or 20 of us. We were a bunch of self-conscious balls of anxiety. And here we were circling up at this base of the stairwell in the open space, looking at each other timidly, but really excitedly too. You know, we just wanted to fit in somewhere finally. And the sharing began. There was Carl from Vermont who told stories. He had a snowboard and told stories of adventures on the mountain, which was something I could relate to. And Dobie with his rock poster, and him adamantly like suggesting that we all go to their show that very night. And then Leo, he had his designed sneaker, and he told of, you know, this fancy design sneaker in front of him, like wanting to work for Nike someday. And that was his biggest dream. There was a girl with a guitar and the nice voice and making us all laugh and have some emotion as we went through. And as my turn got closer and closer, like all these voices just got quieter and quieter. And I wasn't really hearing much in the room. I was hearing this voice in my head. It just was getting louder and louder, and really wondering why I hadn't gotten over something that I was pretty sure everyone else had. So with nothing else to share and some blushed cheeks, I pulled out my beads and told everyone I'd loved beads for a long time and I love jewelry. And I welcomed them to take commissions too. Like I welcomed them to let me know if they wanted anything. And man, whew, I really wondered why it said that, because it was silent after that. There were no nibbles on that bait. Thankfully, the next person went, and I just sat there waiting and couldn't wait to get back to my room and hide those beads deep back in my closet to be forgotten, which is exactly what I did when I finished, or when everyone else finished. So after college, I set up my own jewelry studio. And early on in this time, my mom called me and she said, "Raisa, I have something for you. When can I come visit?" And I noticed there was some enthusiasm in her voice. So when she arrived, I opened the door and she passed over a box, and it was heavy. And we enter into the studio and I start to, open it up a little bit. And as I'm doing so, she just starts going like, "I was at this auction and I couldn't stop bidding on this for you. There were these other women who really wanted it too, but I kept bidding and bidding and I got it. So excited, open it up." And I had a feeling I knew what was in that box. So I'm opening the box, and inside the box were all these little boxes, cigar boxes. And inside those cigar boxes were beautiful beads, these hanks of beads that had little paper bits on them that said France, Czechoslovakia. They were vintage beads that you can't really find so much anymore, and they're not made the same anymore. So I'm rummaging through, avoiding eye contact, and just, muster a, gee, thanks, Mom. Wow, thanks for thinking of me. And then she leaves. And after she leaves, I put the box high up on a shelf. And I continue earnestly forging and working in metal and fabricating and enameling and having things cast. And I'm using torches and files and saws and hammers. But really, for some years there, I just felt like I was doing busy work, keeping my hands going. And nothing I was making was really that exciting. I wasn't really passionate about it. And then one low day, I found myself taking out some white silk beading thread. And I made these tiny little skeins, and I dyed them jewel colors. And then I got out silver and gold, and I started fabricating the metal in ways that I could stitch or sew or weave within the metal, and using those pinks and golds and greens and blues to do so. And then I remembered the box of beads up there, and I took it down, and I started just relaxing into familiar space. And, working with the thread had relaxed me into familiar space, and I had gotten excited about going to studio and spending time there, and time was passing with ease. So when I took that box down and opened it up, I dusted it off, opened it up, I was looking at the beads and just, getting brighter and brighter. The beads were more exquisite than I'd ever remembered them to be. And from that moment on, my hands just knew exactly what to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Raisa. That was just the perfect combination of enthusiasm and anxiety. When you mentioned the ball of anxiety, just like this rush of memories of similar experiences came to me. But in the end, everything works out. It's like what Lizbeth said, everything fell into place and is as it should be. So thank you so much. Okay, everyone, we have one final story to tell, last and certainly not least. It's Jane Partner. She's in London. And Jane has a studio where she used to have a garden and a jewelry collection where her bank account ought to be. Welcome, Jane.
Hello. It's so exciting to get the chance to connect with our jewelry family around the world. I grew up around a lot of beautiful things. My parents had an antique shop, and I lived with them above the shop. And that meant that at night, when it was closed, I could sneak down, and it was as if I had my own private museum. And it was a museum where you could touch. So I'd pick up an antique Chinese tea bowl, porcelain, eggshell thin, and it would feel almost like having a live bird trembling in my hands. Or I'd slip on a gold ring that was inscribed with a love token. And I felt a lot of closeness to the distant people who'd made and owned those things. And it made me know that somehow I wanted to make art myself. Well, those objects were companions to me during a very difficult time. I was an only child and I didn't get to make many friends, but that even more so when my dad got sick and I was helping to care for him. Turned out he was terminally ill, and he was ill for about 10 years. That was through my teenage years, and during that difficult time, I just got more and more depressed. And somehow, that sadness that was accumulating in me, it took up home in my body. And I just felt terrible about how I looked. Insecure and self-conscious. I certainly didn't feel desirable, but I think I didn't even really feel lovable. Oh, I have to tell you, this is very important. How could I forget? The worst thing for me was going to try on clothes. Communal changing rooms were just a nightmare. And I would feel like everyone was watching me, people were judging me and judging my body. And I tended to imagine that all around me, those other people were just slipping kind of effortlessly into glamorous garments, and those would take them out into events, into lives that I somehow couldn't share. It just seemed closed off for me. And the very, very worst thing, just the shame, was the ordeal of going to be measured for a bra. And it felt like when they held up that yellow tape measure, it was like incident tape around a crime scene. I just felt like a disaster. So for me at that time, feeling at home in my body, but also feeling able to create, they both felt entirely out of reach. Well, shopping for clothes might have been just a nightmare, but jewelry I always loved. So all my little bits of spare time after school and every single penny of my my pocket money was spent on simple bits of jewelry that I could find in local shops. I might be able to pick up an Indian silver ring or some amethyst earrings. And I started to realize that wearing those things made me feel just a little bit better about myself. It started to feel almost like an act of self-care, and I got little chinks of joy in my physical being. Well, when I made that connection, of course, I wanted more of these positive feelings, so I started to study jewelry and collect it. But eventually, that wasn't really enough. And as an adult, starting to want to reconnect with the possibility of having a creative life, I started to train to make jewelry. And as soon as I started working really hands-on with the materials, I made an extraordinary discovery. There was a day when my teacher told me to get a big, thick piece of silver and put it in a vise to bend it. So I set it up and I really leant on it with all my might, and I was kind of wrestling with it. And after a while of this tussle, I sensed that it was starting to give and move a little bit. And the particles inside it, I almost felt like I could feel them shifting. And out of that, there was an energy that was coming from the metal and right through my body, and I could feel it going down through the floor of the studio and right into the earth. Well, that was a pretty electrifying experience of making, but that wasn't even the best part. When I started to put together my first simple pieces of jewelry, so like a band ring and some domed earrings, when I wore them, somehow some of that energy from the materials, it kind of stayed there, that sense of dynamism, and it really helped me through the pride and happiness of wearing that simple work, helped me to start to take ownership of my body in a new way. As I started to build up my own jewelry practice, I realized that I wanted wearing my work to be a kind of performance art. I'd always absolutely loved going to galleries and museums, and the sense of peace and contemplation and even reverence that I felt there, I think that links back to how much I loved being in my parents' shop. Well, I realized that I wanted to feel like that about my body and in my body, and that meant that I wanted to really use my physical self as a conduit for creativity, and in the end to feel like my body was actually part of the artwork. So how I've been going about that is in part to use text in my work, and I love to work with words that are affirmative of our physical selves. So I want to share one with you now that connects us to jewelry wearers across time, across millennia. It's a very, very short poem that's been found inscribed on lots of pendants that were made in ancient Greece. But its immediacy for us now still blows me away every time. People say what they like. I don't care. Go on, love me. It does you good. And I think that's not just an incredible statement of the power of jewelry to spread that kind of positive message and to remind us to claim that love that we deserve. But it's also, maybe even more importantly, a way for us to give voice to our bodies to speak to us. Go on, love me. It does you good. Thank you.
That was powerful. Oh my goodness, Jane. Thank you so much. I've heard this story a couple of times, and I was mouthing the words as you were saying the quote at the end. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think now, can we all come back? We're done a little bit early. We've got 6 minutes left in the hour, and we can just say a collective like hello and bye.
It was wonderful. Thank you all. Such exciting stories, and just a thrill to work with everyone. Just a really wonderful group. Caiyang had to, unfortunately, Caiyang's here for Jewelry Week, so she had to rush off to another event. But it's great to be here and share this moment and sort of applause for everyone.
Thank you all.
If anybody is inspired, in the audience today with stories, let us know, because maybe we'll do this again in the future. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, New York City Jewelry Week. Thank you, our amazing storytellers. It's been great.
Thank you all so much for being here. I am I don't know about everyone in the audience, but that was a teary session. That was such moving and personal stories. And I think it's very rare that we get to kind of connect in this way and think a little bit differently about our experience of jewelry and kind of, remove it from this intensely material focused practice to this very human and connected moment. So I appreciate all of you for your candor and your spirit in sharing these amazing stories today. And thank you so much, Karen and Yvonne, for putting together this great collection and bringing it to Jewelry Week for 2021.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay, folks. Well, that is goodbye to our big layout of speakers. This is not the biggest panel. We have bigger ones coming up, but it's getting there. Okay, folks, we are going to head off the stream for today. This is our final program on day 4 live stream, as we have a lot of exciting stuff coming up for you in person today. Lots of things around the city. The Great Symposium is starting at MAD in 4 minutes. So hopefully you are watching this on your phone while you're standing outside of the Museum of Art and Design and just ready to jump in and join us. We've got some fantastic things happening at Rhinestein Russ, at Greenwich Street Jewelers, at Muse, at Atelier Demotion, and then a fantastic panel on the need for diversity in the industry happening later this evening. Some great openings also happening in Chelsea tonight. So check that website, get your schedule together. If you're not joining us in NYC, don't fret. You can still keep up online. There's some great stuff happening on Instagram today as we take you around to these different places. So wherever you are, you won't miss out. This is it for the day 4 live stream, and we'll see you again bright and early here tomorrow for day 5. That is all from us, and we will see you again soon. Thanks for joining us, folks.